It was nearly 1 in the morning by the time Leo made it back to the dorm. He figured his 3 roommates would be asleep, and when he pushed the door open, the lights were indeed off. But Rex Gao, Felix Phone, and Nednyo were all sitting on the balcony, a cigarette dangling from each of their fingers as they blew smoke rings at the moon. "Whoa, what is this? A collective heartbreak?" Leo asked, his voice echoing in the quiet room. "Middle of the night, no video games, just 3 dudes on a balcony? You guys aren't about to make a pact and take a leap of faith, are you? Because I'm not trying to get your share of the rent for free this easily." Rex shot him a glare, taking a long drag from his cigarette and exhaling slowly. "You, with your perfect girlfriend, wouldn't understand the sorrows of single men," he said flatly. "Shut up and go to sleep." "Nah, I'm not tired," Leo said, his interest piqued. He grabbed his desk chair and pulled it over to join them. "Come on, tell me what's got you 3 so emo." Though he didn't smoke, the vibe was set. To really get in with them, turning down a cigarette would just be awkward. So, Leo casually reached over, plucked a cigarette from the pack near Rex, and stuck it between his lips. That got a laugh out of Rex. "Leo, you smoke?" he asked, a flicker of excitement in his eyes. "Nope, but it's just a cigarette. What's there to know? If you can light it, you can smoke it," Leo said with a shrug, genuinely believing there wasn't much of a learning curve. Seeing his bravado, Rex and Felix exchanged a gleeful look. It was an unspoken rule among smokers. The best entertainment was watching a newbie try to act cool. All it took was one simple suggestion. "You have to inhale it properly," Felix said, pushing up his glasses, his voice carefully neutral. "If you don't, you won't feel anything." Sure enough, after Leo lit the cigarette, took a puff, and blew it out, a confused look crossed his face. "I don't feel anything. It's not even that harsh. I don't get why you guys smoke so many of these." "That's because you didn't really inhale," Felix explained calmly. "It has to go into your lungs." "Into your lungs? What does that mean?" Leo asked, genuinely confused. This was uncharted territory. Before Felix could answer, Rex jumped in, a sly grin on his face. "It's easy. Once you get the hang of it, you'll be a pro. Just take a drag, then open your mouth and take another breath of fresh air. That's it." "Oh, sounded simple enough. Just an extra breath." Leo took another puff, and, just as Rex instructed, he opened his mouth and sucked in a deep breath of air. Ha, cough, cough, cough. The smoke hit his lungs like a freight train. He doubled over, hacking violently as tears streamed from his eyes. His head spun, the world tilting sideways. Rex, Felix, and Ned burst out laughing, the scene playing out exactly as they'd anticipated. It took Leo a full minute to catch his breath. He wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and glared at them. "You guys are assholes. Was that a prank? I swear to God, I just saw my life flash before my eyes." Ned chuckled, his voice still full of mirth. "We weren't lying, Leo. That's really how you do it. But you're not used to it, so you can't take such a huge drag. Even an old pro would get dizzy from a hit that big." "Whatever," Leo grumbled, stamping out the cigarette. His desire to smoke was now officially non-existent. Seeing that Leo had been a good sport, Rex dropped the act and told him what they were discussing. "Fall break starts in 3 days, man. We're trying to figure out what to do." Leo raised an eyebrow. "You guys aren't going home?" "Especially you two," he said, looking at Rex and Ned. "You're both from out of state. If you don't go now, you'll have to wait for winter break." "Why would I go home?" Rex scoffed. "All I'll get is an earful from my parents. Here, I can sleep in as late as I want. Way better than being at home." Ned scratched his head sheepishly. "I actually want to go back. It's a 7-day break, so I can help my folks out. But the train tickets are crazy expensive, and they're almost impossible to get for the holidays. I figured I'd just stay and save the money." Felix shrugged. "My family's local, so I can go back any weekend. And with a 7-day break, I can hang out here for a few days and still pop home for a bit." Listening to their reasons, Leo fell silent, a strange sense of déjà vu washing over him. In high school, he'd always avoided going back to Aunt Brenda's during breaks, choosing to work part-time jobs instead. But deep down, he desperately wanted a home to return to. He just hadn't had one in a very long time. His apartment at the Maplewood was just a place he rented. A house without family wasn't a home. He shook himself out of the reverie. "So, you guys figure out where you're going?" "There's not much to do in Crestview, honestly. Most of the tourist spots are lame," Rex said. "But then we realized none of us have ever really climbed a mountain. So the preliminary plan is to do a night hike at Eagle Peak on the 1st. Eagle Peak. Leo's ears perked up. He and Isabel had planned to do that over the summer, but it had gotten rained out, and then she'd gone back to New York. The plan had been shelved ever since. A slow smile spread across his face. "That's a great idea. Mind if I tag along?" Rex's eyes narrowed. "Aren't you supposed to be taking Isabel on some romantic getaway?" "We thought about it, but the studio is going to be swamped over the break. We can't go far, so we're stuck doing something local. So you're bringing her? Damn right I am. Rex was about to launch into a tirade when Leo cut him off. Hey, don't be a little bitch. It won't just be her. She's bringing a friend. Ugh, I know her roommates. They're cute, I guess, but not for me. What's the point? Leo's smile turned sly. It's not Haley and the others. They're all going home for the break. So, another friend of hers. Rex's interest was suddenly rekindled. Is she hot? My type. Leo nodded slowly, his voice laced with intrigue. Telling you too much would spoil the mystery. Let's just say, he's into guys. Leo, you're a true bro. Rex exclaimed, completely missing the pronoun. All right, my man, permission to bring your girlfriend is granted. If this goes well, this trip to Eagle Peak could be the start of something beautiful. Your boy might not be single for long. Oh yeah? Haha, good luck, Leo said, rubbing his nose to hide his grin. If he managed to win him over, Rex, he thought that would be truly impressive. Because Leo had forced Jian Zhang to fold, the advertising deal for Starfall Studios was finally back on track. On Wednesday morning at 10, Leo got the call. Little brother Yi. Leo, Jin's voice crackled over the line. I showed your studio's proposal to my boss. He's very interested. Are you free to come by our office this afternoon? A wave of relief washed over Leo. This was the news he should have gotten 2 days ago, but Jin's petty obstructionism had delayed everything. Keeping his voice even, Leo replied, Of course. Great. I'll tell him. After that, Jin went silent. Leo waited a few seconds, and when it seemed like the conversation was over, he moved to hang up. Just before his thumb hit the screen, Jin spoke again. Hey Leo, about what we agreed on yesterday. You said if I did everything you asked, you'd delete the recording. I did my part, so shouldn't you? Relax, Assistant Zhang, Leo said with a humorless chuckle. I'm not the kind of guy who burns a bridge after he crosses it. But it's a little premature to delete the recording now. I'll get rid of it after this partnership concludes successfully. After all, your professional integrity is questionable. Who's to say you won't try to sabotage things again while our companies are working together? Jian's voice rose in panic. Leo, you promised me. I did. And you promised me, didn't you? Twice. But I never got what I wanted out of your promises. If I hadn't been on my toes, you'd still be playing me for a fool. You. Jian was speechless. He was completely powerless. Any false move, and Leo would send that recording straight to his boss, Mr. Bowman. Getting fired would be the least of his worries. With Mr. Bowman's influence, Jian could be blacklisted from the entire industry. No boss wanted a snake in their company who badmouthed them and actively sabotaged profits. Jian took a deep breath, forcing his anger down. Leo, I know I was wrong. I've learned my lesson. I swear I won't pull any more stunts during this collaboration. Just trust me this one time. Leo scoffed. Your assurances mean nothing to me, Assistant Zhang. But don't worry. As long as you behave, I'll delete the recording when the project is over. Without giving Jian another chance to speak, Leo hung up. He was no saint. Even a kid knew that being indecisive only got you hurt. You had to be ruthless to survive. Screw me once? Okay, my fault for not seeing it coming. Screw me twice? Sorry, but you're finished. You think an apology fixes everything? Please. Getting even is just the beginning. After his last class, Leo went to the cafeteria to meet Isabel for lunch. The first thing he saw was the faint red mark on her neck. He winced. Damn. Was I really that rough last night? He thought, a little ashamed. Gotta be more gentle next time, even if I get carried away. He'd read those stupid online articles about people dying from hickeys rupturing an artery or something. They got their food and sat across from each other. So, fall break is almost here, Leo said casually. Any plans? I want to play games. It's a 7-day break. You can't just play games the whole time. Besides, they're just browser games. You get sick of them after 7 hours, let alone 7 days, Leo said with a frown. Isabel lifted her chin, her expression cool and distant. I won't get tired. It's only 7 hours. TSK, you think you want to play games? I see right through you, Leo thought, amused. 7 hours. Your lips would be swollen from just kissing. Suddenly, her voice echoed in his mind, sharp and indignant. Oof. It's because you're too timid to do anything else. Otherwise, why would it just be swollen lips? Leo froze, his body going rigid. He stared at her, his pupils wide with shock. Do other things? Like what? He desperately wanted to ask, but couldn't. It was a private thought. He had to pretend he hadn't heard anything. So he quickly looked down and shoveled a bite of food into his mouth. Isabel spoke again, her tone unreadable. I don't know. During past breaks, I've always just stayed home. Most of the time I just read or studied. Sometimes I'd have Lester take me to the movies. Leo was taken aback for a second, but then it made sense. She didn't really have any friends, and with Landon Archer out of the country, she was pretty much alone. The thought made his chest ache a little. Well, if you don't have any plans, he said gently, we should go hike Eagle Peak. We never got to go this summer because of the rain. Okay. Her agreement was instant and absolute. Her quiet eyes began to sparkle, and the icy mask on her face melted away. Seeing her light up like that made him smile. We should invite Landon to come with us, he added. That afternoon, Leo arrived at Jian Zhang's company right on time. In the conference room, he finally met the boss, Mr. Bowman. He was a sharp, fit man in his 40s, with none of Jian's paunch and an air of intelligent decisiveness. Mr. Yeager, a pleasure to finally meet you, Mr. Bowman said with a smile. I've reviewed your studio's proposal. It's remarkably creative and full of potential. It's hard to believe your entire team is still in college. You're too kind, Mr. Bowman, Leo replied politely. We're very excited about the possibility of working with your company. They spent the next few hours diving into the specifics of the collaboration. The entire time, Jian sat silently off to the side, not daring to make a peep. As the meeting progressed, Leo got the distinct impression that Mr. Bowman wasn't thrilled with his assistant, either. After several hours of negotiation, they reached an agreement. Leo and Mr. Bowman signed the contracts, officially kicking off the partnership. Walking out of the building, Leo felt a profound sense of relief and accomplishment. He took a long, deep breath. He was one step closer to his goal. What? You thought a guy could actually hear the campus queen's inner thoughts? Please. This is all just the fever dream of some poor kid who got scammed out of his parents' survivor benefits and worked himself to death right before finals. Hee, just messing with you. That evening, Leo took an Uber back to CPI. Instead of heading to his dorm, he went straight to the Fletcher Arts and Design building to give Ruby Yu and the others the good news. When he walked into the studio, he saw that everyone was there, even Sean Xiao, who had been at the hospital with his girlfriend for the past few days. With his arrival, the whole team was assembled. Hey, Leo, you're here. Ruby greeted him with her usual bright smile. I was just about to call you. Since the break is coming up, I thought we should go over the work schedule. With a recent drop in temperature, the ever-stylish Ruby had swapped her shorts for a pair of long jeans. They hugged her curves in a way that was undeniably attractive. Seeing that Sean, Quinn, and Don were all there, Leo allowed himself only a fleeting glance before quickly looking away. They were colleagues, after all. Getting caught staring would be beyond awkward. Bye. No wonder Sean's back today, Leo said with a slight cough, nodding at him. Before he could continue, Sean, anxious for an update, cut in. Leo, I've been so caught up with my girlfriend hospital stay, I haven't had a chance to check in. What's the status of the deal with Mr. Bowman? I was just about to tell you guys, Leo said, a grin spreading across his face. The contracts are all signed. I spoke with them this afternoon. They agree that fall break is the perfect time to launch the ad campaign, a golden opportunity for both of us. Their team is working overtime to get the product assets ready. They should be sending over the preliminary concepts by midnight tonight. Sean's tense expression immediately softened into one of relief. The stress he'd been carrying for days finally dissipated. That's fantastic, he said, letting out a long breath. I was worried you'd have trouble. Don't worry, Sean. Even if there were problems, I would have handled them. Leo decided to omit the part about Jian Zhang's meddling. There was no point in adding to everyone's stress now that it was resolved. Besides, during his meeting with Mr. Bowman, he'd sensed the boss's own dissatisfaction with his assistant. It felt like one more screw-up was all it would take for Jian to be replaced. That dickhead is getting exactly what he deserves, Leo thought smugly. By now, the rest of the team had processed the news, and their faces lit up. Leo, that's amazing, Ruby exclaimed. You're incredible. Sean barely told us the details, and you just went and closed the deal. I guess this means we really need to buckle down and plan our work for the break. I was hoping for a few days off, but it looks like that's not happening now. Quinn nodded thoughtfully. She's right. With the deal signed, our workload is about to explode. We need to assign tasks and make sure the ad launch goes smoothly. Even a usually quiet Donrin spoke up, looking at Leo with newfound respect. Exactly. This is a huge opportunity. We can't mess it up. Seeing the team so energized, Sean felt a surge of pride. He was genuinely surprised that Leo had managed to pull it off. Sean hadn't been confident he could do it himself, and with his girlfriend's surgery, he simply hadn't had the bandwidth to deal with it. Leo had volunteered and actually delivered. Any lingering doubts Sean had about the freshman vanished. Ruby was right. Leo was no ordinary first year. The kid had ambition, and that's a good thing, Sean thought. Ambition fuels drive. Without it, what's the difference between us and assembly line workers? How could we generate new ideas? He was happy to see that drive in his team, and he wasn't threatened by it. At the end of the day, he was the founder. No matter how many shares Leo held or how much input he had, Sean was the one steering the ship. All right, Sean said, his voice ringing with authority. Let's use this momentum to get the studio into the profit-making stage. Our current team won't be enough to handle the workload, so tonight, let's also discuss recruitment. The team launched into a meeting that lasted for 2 more hours. It was nearly 10 o'clock when Leo finally left the building. On his way back to the dorm, he saw Clara Shun and her 3 roommates walking out of their dorm's communal showers, their hair still damp. The sight reminded him of something, and he pulled out his phone, dialing as he walked. Kevin, what's up, man? How come you weren't at CPI hitting on Clara tonight? Kevin chuckled on the other end. Can't be there every day, dude. The internet says you gotta give each other space in a relationship. Can't be too clingy, or they get sick of you. Oh, really? Is that why I just saw Clara walking with someone else? Kevin's cheerful tone vanished. Leo, Clara's not like that, he said, his voice tight with panic. She would never be with another guy behind my back. You must have been mistaken. Why are you getting so worked up? I never said it was a guy, Leo said, laughing. I saw her coming from showers with her roommates. You talk a big game about trust, but your mind still went straight there. Kevin let out an embarrassed laugh. Sorry, got a little heated. It's this cross-campus thing, you know? Makes a guy a little paranoid. So what's up? You call for a reason. Nothing major. My roommates and I are planning a trip for fall break. We're going to hike Eagle Peak. I'm taking Isabel, and I was wondering if you and Claire wanted to come along. It'd be a good chance for you two to have a real trip together. Plus, I could get some pointers on how you guys are making it work. Leo expected an immediate yes. To his surprise, Kevin went quiet for a moment before answering. Leo, man, I don't think we can make it this time. Leo was thrown. This was a perfect opportunity for Kevin and Clara to deepen their relationship. He couldn't imagine why they'd turn it down. Sensing Leo's confusion, Kevin quickly explained. Clara has to go back to the Ozarks for fall break, so she can't come. Oh, that makes sense, Leo said. Well, you can still come with us. Better than being bored by yourself all week. Nah, I can't. Why not? Because I'm going with her. Leo's eyebrows shot up. Seriously? This is the same Kevin who used to turn beet red just talking to a girl. They've been officially dating for less than a month, and he was already going home with her to meet the family? Holy crap, dude. Are you insane? Leo exclaimed. You just started dating, and you're already meeting her parents? No way. I'm not that crazy. I know my limits, Kevin mumbled. Originally, Clara wasn't planning on going home. You know her situation. She's on a tight budget with the money she earned over the summer, and the bus ticket alone would cost her half a month's worth of food money. But I could tell she was getting homesick. So I told her I bought her a ticket. No way. Knowing Clara, she wouldn't just accept a gift like that. Kevin chuckled. Of course not. I'm not an idiot. I told her that since we were so busy making money in the Ozarks this summer, we never got a chance to actually explore. So the ticket wasn't for her to go home. It was so she could be my tour guide. And, since we'd be there anyway, she might as well pop in and see her family. She fought me on it, but I finally wore her down. My original plan was to make up an excuse at the last minute and let her go alone. But I thought about it, and it didn't feel right. You saw how those people in her village are. I was worried they'd give her a hard time again. So I decided I had to go with her. Leo was stunned into silence for a moment. Wow, I always thought you were kind of a blockhead, but you're pretty damn thoughtful when you're in a relationship. First time being a boyfriend, gotta learn as I go, Kevin said, a new confidence in his voice. I'm her boyfriend. I can't let her face that stuff alone. And besides, I want to do something for her. All right, man. In that case, forget the hike. But call me if you need anything while you're out there. After hanging up, Leo walked into his dorm, a pensive look on his face. He replayed Kevin's words in his head. It seemed like college was forcing everyone to grow up fast. Kevin, who used to think about nothing but video games and sports, was now becoming this considerate, mature guy, all for Clara. The thought ignited a fire in Leo. He felt an even greater urgency to make Starfall Studios a massive success. Otherwise, he thought, a familiar anxiety creeping in. The gap between me and Isabel will always be there. Just then, Rex sidled up to him, phone in hand. Leo, we're about to book the Amtrak and park tickets for Eagle Peak. You want me to get them for you, Isabel, and her friend, or are you doing it yourself? I can probably get a discount of a few dozen bucks if I book for everyone. All I need are your ID numbers. Save you the trouble. Leo looked at Rex's overly earnest expression and saw right through him. Nice try, Rex. Don't pretend you're not just trying to get the name of Isabel's friend. Nonsense. I'm not that kind of person. Oh, really? You're just being a good Samaritan? In that case, just buy tickets for me and Isabel. Her friend can get her own. I'll save you some trouble. Rex's face fell. Actually, he stammered, I just checked again and the discount is gone. You guys should probably just buy your own. He quickly retreated before Leo could expose him any further. The next 2 days flew by, with everyone buzzing about the first long weekend of their college careers. The day before the break started, the 4 guys from dorm 415 scarfed down lunch at the cafeteria. Hiking during the day would be too hot, so a night hike was the obvious choice. To avoid the peak holiday crowds, Rex had decreed they would leave for Eagle Peak the day before the break officially began. If all went according to plan, they'd be at the base of the mountain by 6 p.m., hike through the night, and reach the summit in time for a 6 a.m. sunrise. Leo packed light, just tossing a windbreaker in his backpack. He headed out first to wait for Isabel at the girls' dorm. Rex, text me when you guys are ready. I'm gonna meet up with Isabel. Get lost. I'm sick of looking at you. Rex shot back. Leo's face hardened. You're gonna talk to me like that? Rex? I'm hurt. I might just have to tell Isabel's friend not to come. My sincerest apologies, my brother. Rex's tone changed instantly. That was uncalled for. Please, be safe on your journey. I will notify you the moment we are prepared to depart. Leo grinned. That's more like it. Good boy. He strolled off towards the girls' dorm, feeling immensely pleased with himself. Felix pushed up his glasses and looked at Rex. Dude, are you really that desperate to meet a girl? You don't get it, Rex said, puffing out his chest. To be friends with rich people, you need to be on the same level, not just financially, but in the looks department too. Isabel is gorgeous, so her best friend has to be a smoke show, right? You think I'm humbling myself for just any girl? He struck a dramatic pose. The Simp's mantra is patience and persistence. Just you watch. I'm playing the long game with Leo now, and when the time comes, he's going to give me the most glowing introduction to Isabel's bestie. When Leo arrived at the girls' dorm, Isabel was already waiting for him under a willow tree. Dressed for a hike, her style was a complete departure from her usual look. She wore a slim-fit black athletic shirt that perfectly outlined the toned, graceful lines of her torso. The lightweight, breathable fabric seemed to shimmer in the sunlight, and the neckline revealed the smooth, pale skin of her neck. A pair of gray sweatpants hugged her long legs, accentuating their lean muscle and making them look even longer. But the biggest change was her hair. Isabel, who almost always wore her dark, silky hair down, had pulled it back into a high, sleek ponytail for the hike. The simple change dramatically altered her aura. With her hair down, she radiated a cool, unapproachable elegance. But with the ponytail swinging gently with her every move, she looked vibrant and energetic. Though her eyes still held their characteristic coolness, her whole face seemed softer, tinged with a subtle warmth. Leo was so struck by the change that he just stared for a few seconds. Did you talk to Landon? He finally managed to ask. MHM. Isabel nodded, the ponytail bouncing. I just messaged him. He's already set up and will meet us at Eagle Peak. Leo's gaze was glued to that ponytail. He felt like it had somehow unlocked a hidden, adorable side of her that she usually kept under wraps. He's already there, huh? Leo murmured. Well, that just meant Rex's moment of truth would be delayed even further. He wasn't worried about Isabel spoiling the surprise on the way there. Her aloof nature meant Rex wouldn't be able to get a single useful piece of information out of her. He noticed the small backpack on her shoulder. Here, let me get that for you. Just as he took the bag, Haley Xia, Zoe Chong, and Jessie Chiao came out of the dorm building. Seeing Leo and Isabel still there, Haley let out a visible sigh of relief and jogged over. Hey, I'm so glad I caught you guys. I was so worried I'd missed you. She grinned, her face alight with excitement. Leo looked at her, confused. Haley was also dressed in athletic gear, unlike Zoe and Jessie, who were dragging suitcases behind them, clearly ready to head home for the break. Before Leo could ask, Haley linked her arm through Isabel's. Isabel, I just spent forever convincing my parents, but they finally agreed to let me hang out for a couple of days before I have to come home. I'll just head back on the 3rd. So, I can come with you guys to Eagle Peak. Oh, that's great, Isabel said, a small, surprised smile gracing her lips. It was clear she was happy to have Haley along. You're coming with us? Leo asked, finally finding his voice. Of course. Haley said, it's a holiday, and you two are going on a trip together. There's no way I'm missing such a prime opportunity to get my shipping fix. Besides, she added with a little huff, you're bringing your 3 roommates. As Isabel's best friend and roommate, why shouldn't I come? I didn't say you couldn't. The more the merrier, Leo said, a little concerned. But won't your parents be upset you're not coming home right away? Haley shrugged nonchalantly. It's fine. I'm from Crestview. My house is less than an hour away by subway. It's no big deal if I go home later. Jesse and Zoe are from out of state, so they have to leave today. Otherwise, they'd be coming too. Oh, okay then. Leo didn't press it. He glanced at the time. We should get going. All the schools are letting out this afternoon, so traffic is going to be a nightmare. It takes an hour to get to the Amtrak station on a good day, and our train is at 2:30. We need to hurry. He sent a quick text to Rex, telling them to hustle. As they walked to the school gate, Haley chattered excitedly to Isabel. Leo listened quietly, his eyes drifting to Isabel every few seconds. By the time they reached the gate, Rex's Mercedes C-Class was pulling out from campus, with Felix and Ned inside. Spotting them on the sidewalk, Rex, ever the showman, smoothly pulled up beside them and rolled down the window. Leo, you and Isabel should ride with me. My Benz has room for 2 more. Leo chuckled. That's not going to work. Haley's coming with us. Well, Rex's brow furrowed. He wasn't about to let his chance to flex slip away. He glanced at Ned and Felix, trying to figure out which one he could convince to take an Uber. Haley, sensing the dilemma, spoke up. Isabel, you and Leo should just go with Rex. I'm the one who joined last minute. I could just get my own ride to the station. I'll see you there. Before Rex could formulate a plan, Isabel looked coolly across the street. That's not necessary, Haley, she said, her voice dripping with ice. Lester's here. Huh? Who's Lester? Haley asked, confused. Just then, a sleek black Maybach glided to a stop behind Rex's C-Class. Lester, wearing his signature white gloves, stepped out and approached them with his perpetual smile. Miss Thornton, Mr. Yeager, he said respectfully. We should get going. The traffic is bad today. It may take a few extra minutes to get to the station. Isabel nodded, then gave Haley a faint smile. Haley, this is Lester. Turning to Rex, she added sweetly, Thank you for the offer, Rex, but your car is full. We'll just take ours. The color drained from Rex's face. He stared at the Maybach S680, a feeling of suffocation washing over him. It was the C-Class's great-great-grandfather. Art, he screamed internally. You son of a bitch, Leo. Now you've got her in on it too. Leo glanced at Isabel, genuinely impressed. Was this the law of proximity in action? Hang around Leo Yeager long enough, and you learn how to flex? His little neighbor had just mastered the art of shutting Rex down. To escape any further humiliation, Rex stomped on the gas, and the Mercedes disappeared with a roar. All right, let's go, Leo said, waving them on. Lester said the traffic is bad. Leo took the front passenger seat, while Isabel and Haley settled in the back. Haley, who had clearly never been in such an expensive car, was practically vibrating with excitement, oohing and awing at the luxurious interior. After her initial shock wore off, she pulled out her phone and started showing Isabel photos of couples hiking. Isabel, look, when we get to the mountain, you and Leo have to do this pose. I'll take the picture. It'll be so cute, she squealed. Ooh, and this one's perfect. Isabel looked at the photos, a soft, almost dopey smile on her face. Taking pictures with Leo was one of her few treasured hobbies. Haley had stumbled right into the heart of her secret desires. Listening to them, Leo couldn't help but smile. Just then, his eyes fell on Lester's phone, which was resting in the center console, its screen still lit. It was filled with dense blocks of text, just like the web novels Ned was always reading. It took Leo a second to realize that Lester must be a fan, too. He'd seen stuff online about older drivers listening to audiobooks or radio dramas to pass the time. Curious about Lester's literary tastes, Leo bent down, pretending to tie his shoe. He craned his neck and finally saw the title. My Postgrad Life Next Door to the Ice Queen Heiress. Leo froze, his brain short-circuiting for a solid 5 seconds. He straightened up and gave Lester a complicated look. That title was a little too on the nose. Lester, oblivious, noticed Leo looking at him and smiled warmly. Mr. Yeager, please be careful on the mountain with the young miss. I'm not as spry as I used to be, otherwise I'd be right there with you. I'm entrusting her safety to you. Don't worry, Lester. I've got her. As Isabel and Haley continued their conversation, Lester launched into a detailed list of hiking safety tips. Leo listened with one ear, his mind still reeling from the novel's title. The coincidence was uncanny, as if some cosmic force was pulling the strings. I wonder how that novel ends, he thought with a wry twist of his lips. The car moved smoothly through the city, the scenery blurring past the windows. His mind drifted, imagining the plot of the novel, then glancing back at Isabel, who was now eagerly discussing photo angles with Haley. A warmth spread through his chest. Miss Thornton, Mr. Yeager, we've arrived at the station, Lester announced, just as he finished his final safety warning. The three of them got out and saw Rex, Ned, and Felix waiting by the entrance, having already parked. Rex immediately trotted over, a wide, expectant grin on his face. "Leo, we're here. Isabel's friend must be here too, right? Tell her to come over and meet up with the group. It's not safe for her to be alone at the station." Leo shot him a sideways glance. "Her friend went ahead to the Eagle Peak station. You'll have to wait until we get there to meet her. What's the rush?" "What? She's already there." Rex's face fell, his excitement deflating like a pop balloon. Isabel watched him, a look of utter confusion on her face. Why is he so disappointed that he can't meet Landon right away? "Chloe, over here." At the Crestview Amtrak station, Sophie waved frantically at her best friend, whom she hadn't seen in what felt like ages. Hearing her name, Chloe turned, a bright smile spreading across her face. Arm in arm with a handsome young man, she made her way towards Sophie. The man was Stephen Wong, Chloe's new boyfriend. After the disastrous incident at Thrill Mountain, where Leo had publicly exposed Jamin Lee, Chloe had dumped the Korean exchange student for good. Still furious, she'd even had a friend post an expose of all his scummy behavior on the UFC confessions page. In the weeks that followed, Chloe had cycled through several new prospects before finally settling on Stephen, a junior at her department. Stephen was cute, his family was well off, and he drove a $50,000 Mercedes. To avoid a repeat of the Jamin Lee fiasco, Chloe had even orchestrated a couple of tests to make sure Stephen wasn't just another wolf in gentleman's clothing. He'd passed with flying colors, proving to be genuinely kind and completely smitten with her. Now, Chloe was determined to make this relationship work. She imagined running into Leo again, seeing the envy on his face when he saw her with such an amazing boyfriend. She'd heard from one of Leo's high school classmates that he'd started some kind of business at college. The thought made her sneer. Pathetic, she thought. Does he really think starting some little company will put him on the same level as the Thorntons? Some people are born in penthouses, and some are born in the gutter. She shook off the thought and introduced her boyfriend. "Sophie, this is Stephen. He's coming with us to Eagle Peak. Come on, let's get on the train. We could talk more on board." Sophie's eyes flickered over the handsome Stephen, a strange expression crossing her face for just a second before it was replaced by a smile. "Okay, Chloe, where's your bag? Are you really going hiking with nothing?" Sophie asked as they made their way to their train car. Chloe was carrying nothing but a bubble tea and her phone. Chloe just smiled and gestured to Stephen, who was lumbering behind them with a massive hiking backpack. "All my stuff is in Stephen's bag. He's carrying it for me. But you're climbing a mountain. He can't carry all that by himself. He'll be exhausted," Sophie said, her eyes wide as she took in the bulging backpack. It looked heavy enough on flat ground. Carrying it up a mountain for hours would be brutal. Before Chloe could reply, Stephen smiled at Sophie. "It's okay. Chloe's a girl. It would be too hard for her to carry a pack. She doesn't have much stuff anyway, so I don't mind." But Sophie started to protest. Chloe cut her off, linking her arm through Sophie's. "Oh, don't worry about it, Sophie. Stephen likes to spoil me. As his girlfriend, I have to give him opportunities to show his love. Besides, if he gets tired, I'll help him carry it for a while. I'm not that unreasonable." "Yes, you are exactly that unreasonable," Sophie thought bitterly. Since starting at different universities, she and Chloe had drifted apart. At first, they had messaged constantly, sharing every new experience. But as they settled into their own lives, the shared topics dwindled. Now, they barely spoke more than once a week. Female friendships, she was learning, were fragile things. They needed constant maintenance. Chloe had always had a princess complex, but after making new friends at college, normal, considerate friends, Sophie was seeing her in a new light. Looking back, she felt like an idiot for having been Chloe's loyal follower for so long. Now, Chloe's behavior just grated on her. She doesn't give a damn about his feelings, Sophie thought, watching Chloe. It's her princess sickness acting up again. Stephen is handsome, rich, and crazy about you. And this is how you treat him? Do you even deserve him? Of course. She kept these thoughts to herself. On the surface, they were still best friends. "Come on, let's get on board before the train leaves," Chloe said, oblivious to Sophie's inner turmoil. She pulled Sophie onto the train. They found their seats, Chloe taking the middle one with Stephen on her left and Sophie on her right. "Chloe, want some chips?" Stephen asked, offering her an open bag. Chloe shook her head. "No, you have them." "Okay, how about a cookie?" "Ugh, I said no. Can't you see I'm trying to talk to Sophie? Just be quiet for a minute," Chloe snapped. Stephen nodded meekly and fell silent, afraid of angering her. Sophie watched the exchange, a complicated expression on her face. She couldn't understand it. A guy like Stephen could have any girl he wanted. Why was he so subservient to Chloe? Was he really that in love with her? His family, his looks. He could have Chloe wrapped around his finger. Is this what the upperclassmen call a people-pleaser personality in a relationship? Sophie wondered, feeling more certain than ever that Chloe didn't deserve a guy like Steven. Just then, Chloe, sipping her bubble tea, turned to Sophie. Sophie, I heard from one of Leo Yeager's high school classmates that he's starting a business in college. TSK. You could just tell he's feeling the pressure of dating Isabel Thornton, trying to make himself worthy of her family. My parents told me he completely cut ties with his aunt and even sued her. He probably used the settlement money to fund his stupid startup. It's bound to fail. I'm so glad he rejected me when I tried to get back with him, or I'd be regretting it so much right now. A freshman starting a business? What a joke. Sophie blinked. You're still keeping tabs on him? Of course, Chloe said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. After the way he humiliated me, I have to see him fail. Hearing this, Steven's expression tightened. It was clear he knew about Chloe's history with Leo. Sophie noticed the subtle shift and tried to intervene. Chloe, maybe you shouldn't talk about Leo. It might make Steven uncomfortable. Why would he be uncomfortable? Leo isn't my ex-boyfriend. I'm just laughing at him. If I run into him, I'm definitely going to rub Steven in his face. Steven's family is rich, and I don't have to kill myself trying to keep up with him, but he still loves me. If Leo doesn't work his ass off to catch up to Isabel, he's going to get dumped when the gap between them gets too big. She spoke with a smug satisfaction. Suddenly, her eyes widened, and she pointed towards the seats in front of them. Sophie, look, she whispered urgently. Is that Leo and Isabel? Leo, Isabel, and Haley were sitting in one row, while Rex, Ned, and Felix sat in the row ahead of them, loudly debating what to eat before they started the hike. Since boarding, Leo had been glued to his phone, coordinating the next few days' work schedule in the Starfall Studios group chat. The ad deal was finalized, and for the next couple of days, Sean just needed to edit and upload the videos. The rest of the work fell to Ruby and Quinn for scriptwriting and filming. Leo's part was mostly done, save for interviewing some new editors and creatives after the hike. Beside him, Isabel sat quietly, not wanting to disturb him. Haley took in the scene, her eyes narrowed in thought. Leo, she began, a hint of admonishment in her voice. A girlfriend like Isabel is a rare find. Most guys would kill to be with her, and if they were, they'd be treating her like a fragile piece of glass. But here you are, bringing her on a trip and still working, and she hasn't said a single word of complaint. TSK, TSK. If you ever break her heart, I'll be the first to— I won't break her heart, Leo interrupted, his expression dead serious. Leo won't break my heart, Isabel added, lifting her chin with a cool confidence that mirrored his. Haley's face softened into a look of pure satisfaction. Okay, that was adorable. The ultimate power couple. My ship is sailing, she declared. But seriously, how is that studio of yours doing? I saw your account the other day, the one with my club president in the videos. They all have tens of thousands of likes, and a few have over 100,000. With numbers like that, you must be making a ton of money, right? At Haley's question, Isabel also turned her curious gaze to Leo. She knew he was busy, but she never pried unless he brought it up first. She trusted that he would tell her what he wanted her to know. But she was curious. Was all his hard work paying off? If he's not making money yet, I should tell Lester when we get back. Maybe he can help. Her thought rang clearly in his mind. Leo immediately understood what she was planning. He decided to explain the studio's business model to Haley, but his real audience was Isabel. He wanted her to know she didn't have to worry. Our studio creates social media content, and this is just our first account. Profit is related to likes, but high engagement doesn't automatically mean high income, he explained. Since we're a narrative-driven account, we can't monetize the videos directly. Our revenue comes from brand partnerships once we have the followers and the views to attract them. He continued, for this account, once our numbers started taking off, brands began reaching out. We can do product placement or sponsor content within our videos. That's our main source of income right now. We're being selective with our first partners, though, so for this first big deal, we actually approached them. I just signed a contract a couple of days ago. The first campaign will launch during fall break. Haley nodded, fascinated. So what's the income like? Leo smiled. Like I said, we just signed. The company is paying a fixed commission of $400,000. If the campaign exceeds expectations, they'll invest more. And how much of that do you get? Around $200,000, with more to come later. Oh my God. Haley gasped, her jaw dropping. That's an insane amount of money. I thought you and Ruby were just making a few thousand a month, like a part-time job while you study. I never imagined it would be hundreds of thousands. This is surreal. We're all in school, and you're already earning that much. It wasn't just Haley. Even Isabel's eyebrows shot up in surprise. She had no idea he was making that kind of money so quickly. Leo didn't elaborate. Yes, $200,000 was a lot, but it was proportional to the $250,000 he and Kevin had invested. Technically, he hadn't even broken even yet, and this was just one successful account. There was no guarantee the next one would take off. Any profits would likely be reinvested back into the studio. On paper, he was making bank. In reality, it would be a month or two before that money actually hit his account. But he didn't explain any of that. As he spoke, he was completely unaware that in the row behind him, Chloe and Sophie were listening to every word, their faces frozen in disbelief. Chloe had been about to stand up, to walk over and greet Leo with a smug, condescending air, but his words had stopped her cold. Her face went pale. That's impossible. I thought his little business was just a game. How could he make so much money in such a short time? This has to be a joke. Finally, we made it. Eagle Peak, here we come. Haley cheered as the train pulled into the station an hour later. Once the train stopped, Leo grabbed his backpack from the overhead rack, slung it over one shoulder, and casually took Isabel's hand as they headed for the exit. A faint blush colored her cheeks, but her expression remained cool. The subtle reaction did not escape Haley's notice. She grinned like a Cheshire cat, completely satisfied. "Hey, Rex, wake up. We're here," Leo said, nudging his roommate as he passed their row. Rex, Ned, and Felix were all slumped against each other, fast asleep. It was such a tender, romantic scene that Leo almost felt bad for waking them. "Huh, we're here." Rex jolted awake, looking around blearily. He saw the Eagle Peak station sign outside the window, and the sleep vanished from his eyes. He shook Felix and Ned awake, then turned to Isabel, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Hey, Isabel, what's your friend's last name? I still don't know it, and I don't want it to be awkward when I introduce myself." Isabel's brow furrowed. She was getting more and more confused. Why was Rex so obsessed with Landon? She remembered him saying his family was wealthy. Was it possible the Gows wanted to do business with the Archers? Was that why he was so eager to get on Landon's good side? But didn't Leo tell him Landon's name? Though puzzled, she answered his question. "His last name is Archer." "Archer," Rex repeated, a dreamy look on his face. He began to mutter to himself, "Little Archer. Just a name sounds cute. I can't wait to meet her. This is getting better and better." Leo chuckled, shake his head. He hadn't thought Rex's expectations could get any higher, but the guy had clearly built up an entire fantasy in his head. The power of imagination is a terrifying thing, Leo thought. He briefly considered telling Rex the truth, to spare him the inevitable shock of discovering that Landon was not only a guy, but also gay. The resulting scene would be too beautiful, too catastrophic to imagine. But then he reconsidered. He hadn't lied. Back in the dorm, he'd only said he's into guys. He'd provided no other information. Everything else was a product of Rex's own overactive imagination. If reality didn't live up to the fantasy, that wasn't Leo's fault. Feeling much better, he clapped his hands. "All right, let's get off the train before it leaves without us," Haley urged, already holding her bag. The group nodded and filed out of the car. Leo kept a firm grip on Isabel's hand. "Watch your step on the way down." "Okay," she murmured, her voice soft but her face as cool as ever as she obediently followed him. Rex and the others watched, dumbfounded. They all knew how cold Isabel could be to everyone else. But around Leo, she transformed into a different person entirely. It was a mystery they couldn't solve. What kind of superpower did Leo possess to make the untouchable Ice Queen so utterly devoted to him? They stepped onto the platform, the cool autumn wind greeting them. Haley stretched her arms wide, as if to embrace the entire mountain. Rex, still lost in his daydreams, continued to pester Isabel. "So, Isabel, what are little Archer's hobbies?" Isabel frowned, her patience wearing thin. "He just got back to the country. I haven't seen him in years, so I don't know what he's into these days. You can ask him yourself when he gets here." "He just got back from abroad? He's a world traveler? Wait, is he part European?" Rex's excitement reached a fever pitch. He was already picturing their wedding. Leo watched him, suppressing a laugh. None of them noticed the three figures who had disembarked behind them: Chloe, Sophie, and Stephen. Chloe had been silent and sullen ever since she'd overheard Leo's conversation. She watched him now, holding Isabel's hand, a storm of regret brewing inside her. If I'd just been nicer to him back then, she thought, maybe I would be the one on his arm right now. His parents might be gone, but he was brilliant and driven. She had no doubt he would be a rich man one day. And now, she had missed her chance. Standing beside her, Stephen saw the way his girlfriend was staring at another guy's back, and his own mood soured. He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it. Sophie, however, noticed his distress. "Stephen, don't worry about it. she said gently. Chloe and that guy, Leo, have no real history. They were just neighbors. Oh, thanks, Sophie, Stephen said, though his expression remained troubled. Chloe was so lost in thought, she didn't even seem to hear them talking. Sophie saw that too. She smiled, a hint of a blush on her cheeks. You're welcome. You can call me Sophie, you know, just like Chloe does. Stephen blinked, then nodded slowly. Okay. Sophie's smile widened, and the way she looked at him held new, intriguing warmth. Just as they exited the station, Isabel's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and then looked up at Leo. Landon booked us a table at a restaurant. He said we should eat before we start the hike. Is he there now? No. He's visiting an uncle who lives nearby. He'll meet up with us after we finish eating. Works for me, Leo said. We haven't had lunch yet, so this can be an early dinner. He called out to Rex, who was walking ahead. Hey, we're heading straight to dinner. Little Archer booked us a place. What? He booked a restaurant? Does that mean she's already there waiting for us? Rex's eyes lit up. No, he has to do something else. He'll meet us after dinner. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Rex hailed 2 taxis. Hop in, guys. The fare's on me. Someone tell the driver where we're going. Leo gave Rex the address. Rex, Ned, and Felix piled into one car, while Leo, Isabel, and Haley took the other. Once they were settled, Haley turned to Isabel. Isabel, is your friend Archer a girl? I feel like you've never mentioned her before. Isabel frowned. He's a guy. Why would you think he's a girl? He's a guy. Haley's eyes went wide with shock. I just assumed. I mean, Rex has been so excited to meet him. But if he's a guy, why is Rex acting like that? She turned to Leo, looking for an explanation. Leo just rubbed his nose. I don't know. Don't look at me. Really? Because if I remember correctly, you have a history of messing with him, Haley said, unconvinced. Hey, no slander, Leo said defensively. I swear this time I didn't trick him. I didn't even lie to him. He sounded so sincere that Haley was momentarily confused. If that was true, then what was up with Rex? He was a notorious girl chaser. There was no way he was in a guise. But Isabel, ever perceptive, seemed to have figured it out. She leaned closer to Leo and whispered, Did you tell him that Landon likes boys? Technically, no. When I said we were bringing a friend, Rex asked if she was cute. My exact words were, let's just say, he's in a guise. I didn't say anything else about Landon. Isabel shot him a look that was equal parts exasperation and amusement. Whoa, this place is fancy. I ain't never eaten at a restaurant this nice in my 19 years on this earth. Ned exclaimed as they got out of the taxi. Rex puffed out his chest and elbowed Felix. See, what did I tell you? To be friends with rich people, you have to be on the same level. Just wait. When you meet little Archer, you'll understand why I've been sucking up to Leo. She's going to be a total knockout. He was getting more and more hyped, though he was careful not to let Isabel and Haley hear him. His pride wouldn't allow it. They went inside, and Isabel gave the reservation name to the hostess, who led them to a private room. As soon as they sat down, Leo felt a sudden urge. You guys go ahead and order. I need to use the restroom. I miss him. Isabel nodded, taking his backpack from him. I'll hold this for you. As Leo headed for the men's room, a figure shot out from behind him. He jumped, his first thought of panic, no way. Is she really this clingy? This is the men's room. But a second glance revealed it was just Rex, who was about the same height as Isabel. Rex grinned at him, and Leo felt a shiver run down his spine. Rex, I'm going to take a leak. Why are you following me? Yeah, you do your thing. I won't bother you. I'm using a stall. Spit it out. Seeing you've been found out, Rex chuckled sheepishly. Okay, look, we're about to meet little Archer, and only you and Isabel know her. I was thinking maybe I should buy a bouquet of tulips to give her when she arrives. It will make a good first impression, right? Why tulips specifically? Leo asked. Because tulips symbolize nobility and a loyal, undying love. I'm not really going for the second part, but I want her to know that my family is well off too. So even if it's love at first sight, she'll know we're in the same league. And don't say I'm just trying to show off. I know that anyone who's friends with Isabel has to come for money. It's better to just put all your cards on the table. Rex looked at him with dead seriousness. Leo just sighed and clapped him on the shoulder, shaking his head. If Rex showed up with a bouquet of flowers, he would become a laughingstock. Leo had only been trying to get Rex to let Isabel come along, not turn him into a complete clown. Don't do it, Leo said gently. It's your first time meeting. Besides, he leaned in conspiratorially. You know what's better than tulips? A towel. She's going to be sweating buckets on that mountain. Be practical, not a cheesy romance novel. Rex's eyes went wide. You're right. Leo, you're a genius. I know. Now go back and eat. I really have to pee. Leo shooed him out and, after taking care of business, hurried back to the private room. By the time they finished dinner, it was 5 o'clock. They hailed another set of taxis and headed for the base of Eagle Peak. On the way, Rex was practically vibrating with excitement. When they arrived, Isabel called Landon, and they shared their locations. A few minutes later, a black luxury van pulled up in front of them. This was it. Landon was here. Rex held his breath, plastering a brilliant smile on his face. He quickly ran a hand through his hair, wanting to look his absolute best. De van door slid open. The group saw him, and for everyone except Leo and Isabel, their jaws dropped. Rex sucked in a sharp breath. The smile froze on his face. Rex Gao's eyes went wide. He stared at Landon Archer stepping out of the black SUV, utterly speechless. Landon was dressed in a sporty, sun-bleached athletic outfit. Through the window, the group could see a tailored suit jacket he'd just taken off, tossed carelessly onto the back seat. His handsome face and tall, lean frame radiated a mature, steady charm. P8.She, in particular, gasped, her lips parting slightly as she got a clear look at him. She'd never imagined Isabel's friend would be a certified super hunk. Just then, the driver got out, opened the trunk, and pulled out a backpack, handing it to Landon with a bow. "Sir, your bag. Everything you requested is packed inside." "Thanks," Landon said with a nod. His gaze first fell on Isabel and Leo, giving them a small, acknowledging nod. Then his eyes swept over Haley, Rex, and the others, lingering for a couple of extra seconds on the dumbfounded Rex. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "Wait, it's a dude." The reality finally crashed down on Rex. He was completely floored. After a long, stunned moment, he frantically scanned the SUV again. Did Isabel have another friend besides this? Landon? A girl? And if so, what's this guy's deal? He's handsome, easily on par with Leo. Could he be Landon's boyfriend? Did he just drop him off? 1,000 theories flashed through Rex's mind. He stared intently at the vehicle, but it was empty. A terrible, sinking feeling began to bubble up in his gut. Landon slung the backpack over his shoulder and smiled at Leo. "Leo, good to see you again. Mind introducing me to your friends?" "Oh, right. Leo had been so focused on Isabel that he'd almost forgotten. He gestured to the group. "This is P8.She, she's Isabel's roommate. And this is Rex Gao, Felix Fong, and Ned Nyo. My roommates. They're good guys, so don't feel like you have to be formal." After introducing everyone, Leo was about to return the favor, but stopped short when he realized he didn't actually know much about Landon besides his name. He shot a questioning look at Isabel. He was her friend, after all. It was more appropriate for her to do it. But before Isabel could speak, Rex, who had already pieced together the horrifying truth, took a shaky step forward. He took a deep breath. "Bro," he said, his voice strained. "Your last name? Is it Archer?" Landon raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, a look of surprise melting into a smile. "Oh, did Leo and Isabel tell you about me before I got here?" A fresh wave of pain washed over Rex's face, but he pressed on, clinging to a sliver of hope. "Do you have a sister or something?" "I'm an only child." "So, you're Isabel's friend?" Landon nodded, his smile widening. "I'm Isabel's friend, and I guess you could say I'm Leo's friend, too." The final nail in the coffin. The truth hit Rex like a physical blow. He clutched his chest, stumbling back a few steps. He wanted to glare daggers at Leo, but his scalp was tingling so intensely he couldn't muster the energy. His mind was a looping nightmare of his own words and Leo's from the past few days. "If I tell you too much, it'll spoil the mystery. I'll just say this. He's into guys. Leo, you're a true bro. For that, I'll allow you to bring a +1 on this trip. Who knows? Maybe your boy Rex will finally score with Isabel's friend on this Eagle Peak adventure." The Simp's mantra is patience and persistence. Just you watch. I'm buttering Leo up now, and he's totally going to give me a glowing recommendation to Isabel's bestie. So her name's Landon. Even the name sounds cute. I can't wait to meet her. You know what's better than tulips? A towel. The words echoed in his head, a cold dread washing over him. He felt like he was dying. He wanted to scream at Leo, but looking back, he realized Leo had never once said Isabel's friend was a girl. And that one line, "he's into guys," Rex had instinctively assumed that meant the friend had to be a girl. Otherwise, how could they be into guys? But then he remembered Ruby Yu, the president of the dance club he'd briefly joined, was into girls. If girls could like girls, then of course guys could like guys. It wasn't some unbelievable concept. So, Rex glanced at Landon and reflexively clenched his butt cheeks. Seeing that Rex was completely catatonic, Haley cheerfully stepped in. "Yeah, Leo and Isabel told us about you. And thanks for dinner the other night." Isabel finally spoke up, formally introducing him. "This is Landon Archer. We grew up together. He's 4 years older than me." "Oh, so you're older than all of us," Haley said, realization dawning. "Isabel always called you Landon. so I just figured you might be younger. Felix and Ned were also snapping out of their initial shock. Thanks to Rex's hype campaign, they had also been convinced Isabel's friend was a girl. They hadn't expected a ridiculously handsome, wealthy-looking guy. Honestly, Landon Archer looked more like a Rex Gao than Rex Gao did. The two of them politely said hello. Landon seemed delighted. He turned toward the mountain. It's getting late. We should start heading up. We can talk on the way. This is a long hike. Everyone agreed, and the group began their trek up Eagle Peak. As they started along the path, Rex, who had been bursting with excitement before, now lagged at the very back of the group. Leo waited for a moment when Isabel was chatting with Haley, then slipped back to Rex's side. So what do you think, Rex? Leo said, a grin playing on his lips. Is Landon handsome enough for you? Leo, you are a son of a bitch. Rex seethed, his eyes bugging out. Isabel's friend is a guy, and you deliberately made me think he was a girl from the very beginning. I swear to God. He knew it. He could never escape one of Leo's schemes. But Leo just frowned, feigning offense. Don't make me out to be the bad guy. I never deliberately created the illusion that Landon was a girl. You did all that imagining on your own. You. Rex opened his mouth to argue, but then he thought about it. It was true. Leo had never said or even hinted that Landon was female. The entire fantasy had been constructed in his own head. His face cycled through shades of red and white. Just hearing Leo's voice now felt like listening to the devil whisper in his ear. Finally, Rex sighed, his usual girl-crazy expression returning. He jutted his chin out. Fine, I'll let it slide. You had a shred of decency at dinner. At least you didn't actually make me bring a bouquet of tulips. But hey, when we got off the train, I saw a couple of girls sitting behind you, Isabel and Haley. One of them was really pretty. Looked like they were here to hike Eagle Peak, too. If we run into them, I'm totally getting her number. He puffed his chest out. Your boy is going to be brave this time. Leo frowned. He'd been so focused on Isabel on the train, he hadn't paid any attention to who was sitting behind them. He shrugged it off. Two girls hiking Eagle Peak alone? No guys with them. There was one guy, but he was probably with the less attractive one. So, no competition. Huh. Well, you might actually run into them. Pretty much everyone doing the night hike starts around this time. Leo nodded, then noticed Isabel looking back at him from up the path. She was pouting, a hint of accusation in her eyes, as if silently asking why he was so far away from her. Leo immediately decided to rejoin her. Hey, he said to Rex before he left, if you see those girls, give me a shout. I'll help you strategize. Might increase your success rate. Finally acting like a human being for once, Rex snorted, then turned to start boasting to Felix and Ned. Leo walked back to Isabel's side. What's up? He asked with a grin. I was just talking to Rex. He's having a hard time accepting that Landon is, in fact, a man. You should stop teasing him like that. Isabel paused, glancing back at Rex, and lowered her voice. He's not that bright. Huh? Leo barely suppressed a laugh. If Rex heard that assessment, he might just decide to solve all his problems by taking a leap of faith off the side of the mountain. In reality, Rex wasn't an idiot. He was just desperate for a pretty girlfriend. When it came to important things, he was sharp enough. He was a genuine rich kid, after all. If he were truly that clueless, his parents would have started working on a replacement long ago. It's just a joke now and then, Leo said with a chuckle. He's not as dense as you think. Isabel huffed softly, dropping the subject, but her inner thoughts still drifted into Leo's mind. Leo, you're so mean. Just like when you were little. Well, they say girls love a bad boy, so if being mean... Wait, stop, Leo thought, catching himself, but his mind had already latched onto the crucial part. Just like when you were little. Leo's brow furrowed for a split second before he smoothed his expression, afraid she'd notice. Why would she mention their childhood? Her tone made it sound like she'd known him back then. Why else would she say, just like when you were little? That was something only someone who knew the younger Leo could say. A possibility he'd never considered before struck him. Maybe he'd been wrong all this time. The way her inner voice always called him Little Leo, maybe it wasn't just a cute nickname. Maybe the little was literal. Leo had always wondered why Isabel had moved into the Maplewood, right next door to him, and why she'd been so warm to him from the start. Before she moved in, he was certain that he and the resident Ice Queen of Northwood High had had almost zero interaction. Even after they got together, he still hadn't figured it out. The last time he'd asked, she had definitely changed the subject. Now, hearing another clue in her thoughts, his curiosity was reignited. But he knew if he asked her directly, she'd just dodge the question again. Realizing this, Leo looked up at Landon walking ahead of them. Landon and Isabel have known each other forever. They practically grew up together. Maybe I can get the truth from him. Leo's eyes narrowed. He had a plan. Inviting Landon on this hike might have been a very, very good idea. He turned to Isabel, his expression casual. Hey, you and Haley chat for a bit. I'm gonna go talk to Landon. It's our second time meeting. I should make an effort to get to know him. Okay, Isabel said, not thinking anything of it, and gave him a sweet nod. Landon, Leo said as he caught up to him. The name felt strange on his tongue. Landon was 4 years older than Isabel, which meant he was 4 years older than Leo, too. Calling his girlfriend's childhood best friend by his full name felt a little stiff. As Leo was debating what to do, Landon turned, a faint smile on his face. No need to be so formal, he said calmly. Isabel calls me by my full name all the time. You can do the same. Don't worry about the age gap. Okay. Leo rubbed his nose, still feeling a bit awkward. He didn't know what was wrong with him. He wasn't normally a shy person. If anything, he had a case of social butterfly syndrome. It was a product of his upbringing. Living with Brenda's family had forced him to be outgoing, since he had to handle most things himself. Over the years, he'd learned to be comfortable around anyone. But with Landon, there was a feeling he couldn't quite place. Maybe it was because Landon was so important to Isabel. Subconsciously, Leo was treating this more seriously, afraid of making a bad impression. Damn, why does this feel like meeting the parents? Leo thought to himself. Landon's eyes twinkled. Of course, if calling me Landon Archer feels too distant, you can just call me Landon. That's fine too. Jaeger. Huh. Leo's expression shifted. The sound of his last name, used so casually, made the hairs on his arms stand up. It was a very Western thing, to call someone you're close to by a single name. Landon had studied abroad for 5 years. He'd clearly picked up the habit. Out of politeness, Leo kept his discomfort off his face. He just stretched his lips into a semblance of a smile. I think I'll stick with what Isabel does. Your full name is fine. All right, Jaeger. Whatever you prefer, Landon said, looking a little disappointed. The flicker of disappointment vanished as he glanced back at Isabel, who was chatting with Haley. A wave of affection crossed his face, completely undisguised. Seeing it, Leo was surprised to find he didn't feel a shred of jealousy. It was as if he trusted, deep down, that there was truly nothing romantic between Isabel and Landon. Suddenly, he thought of that popular internet saying, there's no such thing as a purely platonic friendship between a man and a woman. Leo's answer was, yes, there is. Look no further than Landon and Isabel. It's a nickname, but not really, Leo replied to Landon's unspoken question. I called her that before we were together, mostly because she lived next door. It just became a habit. He'd also called her his little sugar mama for a while. If you were being technical, that was a pet name, too. So, Jaeger, how are you holding up? Tired? What? The hike. This must be your first time, right? Landon asked, a knowing smile on his face as he looked at Leo. Leo was surprised by his certainty. It was, in fact, his first time hiking a mountain, but all the part-time jobs he'd worked had involved way more physical labor than this. He didn't feel tired at all. He shook his head. Not tired. But how did you know it was my first time? I did a bit of hiking when I was studying in the UK. Nothing like the mountains here, of course, but I picked up some experience. Even if you don't hike often, someone who's done it even once has a slightly different posture than someone who's never done it at all. Based on your form, it was easy to tell you have zero hiking experience. Oh, I see. Leo nodded, enlightened. He had been worried Landon might not be much of a talker, but after a few minutes, he found him to be much more easygoing than he'd expected. He always had a faint smile on his face, giving off a gentle, warm vibe. It made Leo wonder, why was it that a rich kid like Landon was so refined and princely, while a guy like Rex Gao acted like he wanted a tattoo, I'm a rich kid, on his forehead? Ahem. So, you've hiked a lot of mountains? Any special tips you can share, Lon? Don. Jaeger, you've come to the right man. On that subject, and just like that, Landon began earnestly sharing his experiences hiking abroad. In the process, he occasionally mentioned things that happened with Isabel when they were children. While there was nothing substantial, Leo still managed to pick up a few tidbits about Isabel's childhood. Leo didn't press his luck by asking directly about a connection between his own childhood and Isabel's. He had only just started to get to know Landon. If he came on too strong and Landon figured out his real objective, things would get awkward. Landon might just shut down completely. So, Leo decided to stick to casual conversation and wait for a better opportunity. They had hours to go before they finished the hike, anyway. After a relatively flat stretch of trail, the group finally reached the official Eagle Peak trailhead around 7 in the evening. They scanned their tickets at the automated gate and began the Real ascent. Haley pulled a camera out of her backpack. Let's not rush up, she said cheerfully. We should get a group photo in front of the trailhead sign. Good idea, Rex said. But who's going to take it? None of us brought a tripod, right? Leo shot him a look. Are you dense? If you don't have a tripod, you ask a random passerby to help. Right. Okay, let your boy Rex find us a photographer. Rex rubbed his hands together and began sizing up the people walking past. The others ignored him, turning to their phone cameras to fix their hair and make sure they looked their best for the photo. Only Isabel stood there, cool and composed, her eyes fixed on Leo. Leo smoothed down a cowlick that was sticking up. Just as he was about to say something, Isabel tilted her chin up, her tone coolly commanding. Leo, hold my hand for the picture. Huh. Leo looked up in surprise. The next second, he felt a warmth envelop his hand. Isabel had already taken it, her fingers weaving through his until their palms were pressed together. Leo's heart skipped a beat, and a gentle smile spread across his face without him even realizing it. He squeezed her hand back tightly. Meanwhile, Rex had found their photographer, a girl with an incredibly athletic figure. She was wearing a sports bra, and the view was distracting. Felix, a connoisseur of such scenery, pushed his glasses up his nose. Rex, nice work, he muttered, finding such a pretty photographer. Rex preened. Of course, you have to smile for pictures to look good. But a forced smile looks stiff and ugly. If we have a pretty girl taking the picture, when we look at the camera, our smiles will be genuine. The photo will look 1,000 times more natural. You're a genius, Felix said, giving him a thumbs up. Leo, still holding Isabel's hand, overheard their exchange. Rex, you really never stop looking for pretty girls, do you? He commented. Even for taking a picture, you've got a whole strategy. Rex snorted. You don't get it. I'm just choosing a playstyle that gets the most comments. Whatever you say. Soon, the group had arranged themselves in front of the massive Eagle Peak trailhead sign. Leo and Isabel stood front and center, holding hands. On either side of them were Haley and Landon. Rex, Ned, and Felix stood in front, legs slightly apart in a slight crouch, so they were a bit shorter than the main four. The girl Rex had recruited stepped back, raised a camera to her eye, and called out, Okay, on 3. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Cheese. Click. The camera's flash blinked. After the shot was taken, everyone crowded around to see the result. The girl handed the camera back to Haley with a smile. You're all so photogenic. The picture came out great. And you too, she said, looking at Leo and Isabel, are such a gorgeous couple. I'm not even a professional photographer, but you make the picture look amazing. Everyone leaned in to look at the photo, their faces breaking into happy smiles. Isabel nestled close to Leo, standing on her tiptoes to see, a beautiful smile gracing her lips. Leo, however, only had eyes for Isabel in the picture. Her tall, slender figure easily outshone every other person accidentally captured in the frame. Dressed in her athletic gear with her hair in a high ponytail that revealed her smooth forehead, her delicate face was a picture of youthful innocence. In the photo, her gaze wasn't aimed directly at the lens, but was turned slightly toward Leo, her head tilted up. Everyone agreed it was a fantastic photo. Rex looked triumphantly at Leo. See? What did I tell you? Finding a pretty girl to take the picture was the right move. The result is flawless. I think it's good too, Ned added. Landon, who hadn't had much chance to talk to Rex, finally saw an opening. He smiled warmly. Rex, it seems you have a unique perspective on photography. I'm quite fond of it myself. Perhaps we could have an in-depth discussion about it. Rex's face fell instantly. A muscle in his cheek twitched, and he started shaking his head frantically. Landon, bro, you misunderstood. I was just talking big. I'm a total amateur. I don't know a thing about photography. As for an in-depth discussion, I think we can skip it. No need, really no need at all. Ha ha ha. Rex let out a dry laugh and quickly grabbed Felix, pulling him toward the trail. He didn't think Leo had been lying to him for a second. When he'd asked the busty girl to take their picture, everyone, including Leo, had obviously given her a second look. But Landon's expression had remained perfectly neutral the entire time. When the picture was taken, he'd actually looked straight at the camera. Rex couldn't help but be suspicious of his preferences. Haley laughed and put the camera away. All right, picture's done. Let's keep moving. This is just the beginning. If we're not taking the cable car, we can't stop until we reach the North Peak, or we'll miss the sunrise tomorrow. The group nodded, adjusted their backpacks, and continued up the mountain. None of them noticed that just as they were leaving the trailhead, another group of 3, 2 girls and a guy, arrived at the same spot. One of the girls watched Leo and Isabel's retreating, hand-in-hand figures, her expression turning incredibly complicated. It was Chloe, Sophie, and Stephen Wong. Stephen saw the look on his girlfriend's face. He paused, then asked gently, Chloe, should we ask someone to take a picture of the 3 of us? I read online that this is a great photo spot. I don't want to. Chloe snapped. She had no desire to take a picture here, not right after Leo and Isabel had. She felt like if she did, she'd just be imitating Isabel all over again. The memory of the graduation party was still fresh and painful. Seeing his girlfriend had no intention of taking a photo, Stephen sighed in defeat. Okay then, let's keep moving. Wait, Sophie suddenly called out, grabbing Chloe's arm. Chloe, let's take one. It'll be a good memory for you and Stephen. You two probably don't have a proper photo together yet, do you? Oh, well, no, Chloe admitted. Then we definitely should. Sophie pressed. And if I'm not mistaken, Stephen probably brought a camera, right? She looked up at Stephen, who was a head taller than her. Stephen was shocked. He couldn't believe she'd guessed he had a camera. Even Chloe hadn't known. In the end, Chloe couldn't resist Sophie's persuasion and agreed to take a couple's photo with Stephen in front of the trailhead sign. Sophie took the camera, stepped back, and aimed it at them with a wide smile. As she prepared to take the picture, she thought to herself with cold satisfaction, Chloe, this is the first photo of you and Stephen together. And it will also be the last. The path up Eagle Peak was steep and singular. After an hour of walking, Leo's group had only just passed the first major landmark on the map. Every 1,000 meters or so, they'd come across a small shack selling fruit, water, and instant noodles, makeshift supply stations. Many hikers would stop at each one to rest and buy a drink. But these little shops would disappear further up the mountain, replaced by official, less frequent stations of the major peaks. By the time they reached the first of these shacks, Rex was already panting heavily. He had gone from leading the pack to dragging his feet at the very back. Seeing that the others had no intention of stopping, he yelled out, Whoa, let's take a break here. I had no idea hiking was this exhausting. Rex, this is the first station. Let's rest at the next one, Felix said, though he was also covered in sweat. Yeah, I'm just getting warmed up, Ned chimed in. Up ahead, Leo and the others heard Rex's plea and stopped to look back. Haley rolled her eyes. Seriously, Rex? You're a grown man. How is your stamina worse than mine? We've barely started and you're already dying. You shut up, Haley. Rex wheezed, leaning on his knees. I'm just having an off day, that's all. Just let me rest for a minute, and I'll be back at the front of the pack. He looked like he'd collapse if he took one more step. Seeing Rex on the verge of death, Leo raised an eyebrow. He glanced at Isabel beside him, her cheeks flushed and tiny beads of sweat glistening on her forehead. He finally nodded. All right, let's rest here for a bit. We don't want Rex to overdo it. It's just the beginning. We need to ease into it. Leo, you're the best. Rex looked like he was about to cry with gratitude. He couldn't believe the one who suggested a break was Leo, the guy who loved messing with him the most. All those months of being the butt of his jokes had paid off. When it mattered, Leo was a reliable friend. The group found a place to sit down. Leo took a pack of wet wipes from his bag, opened one, and handed it to Isabel. Wipe your face with this. It's nice and cool. Isabel nodded, taking it from him. After she was done, she took another wipe and began gently dabbing the sweat from Leo's forehead. The sight made Rex, who was panting like a dog next to them, twitch. He craned his neck. Hey, Leo, since you were nice enough to let everyone stop for my sake, be a good guy and toss me a wet wipe, will you? Wiping my face with toilet paper is just making a sticky mess. Leo looked at Rex in confusion. He was silent for a moment before speaking slowly. So, you think I said we should rest? For you? Well, yeah. Leo rubbed his nose, looking slightly embarrassed. He shuffled a little closer to Isabel. Finally, he cleared his throat and said gravely, Is it possible that I was worried Isabel was getting tired? And that's why I... Oh, Leo, you bastard, shut up. Shut up. Rex's face twisted in agony, already red from exertion. It now deepened to a furious shade of purple. Felix and Ned watched on, sighing internally. Poor Rex. Why did he always offer his face up for Leo to slap? After a 10-minute break, the group set off again. Another hour later, they reached the 1,000-foot precipice. From this point on, it wasn't just hiking, it was climbing using both hands and feet. The stone steps were nearly vertical, at what Leo estimated was a 60 or 70-degree angle. Rex, who had a slight fear of heights, was now at the front of the line, too terrified to look back. His legs trembled with every upward step. For safety, Leo stayed directly behind Isabel. If she slipped and fell backward, he was confident he could catch her instantly. Tired? Leo asked. He could feel his own breathing getting heavier. His shirt was soaked with sweat, and as the evening wore on and their altitude increased, the mountain air grew colder. The damp fabric felt icy against his skin. We can rest on the platform after this section. Isabel looked back at him, her eyes soft. She shook her head. I'm not tired. Huh? Leo was surprised. She didn't look like she was just putting on a brave face. For a moment, He wondered if his own stamina was just average, but a glance back revealed Haley and Felix had fallen far behind, their movement strained. It wasn't just him, which meant Isabel's stamina was surprisingly good. Since no one else called for a stop, Leo didn't push it. They continued their climb and finally reached a flat platform. Haley and Felix staggered up a moment later, collapsing onto the ground. Rex slumped against the railing, pale and trembling. "Damn, that was terrifying," he muttered. "I never should have come." Landon, an experienced hiker, and Ned, who was naturally athletic, seemed unfazed. Ned took a swig of water. "Rex, I'm just getting warmed up now." "Your stamina is weak," he said, pursing his lips. "Look at Landon. He's a rich kid too, but he's not even breathing hard just like me." Rex's pride was wounded. He sat up straight. "I'm not tired," he insisted. "I just have a fear of heights." Ned, believing him completely, grinned. "In that case, Rex, you and I can go scout ahead." Rex's face went white. I have to go to the bathroom. We'll talk after." "Oh, then let's go together." "I'll come too," Felix added, and the three of them headed off toward the public restrooms. Leo was sitting on the steps, Isabel's leg resting across his lap as he gently massaged her ankle. Haley snapped a picture of the scene with her camera. "TSK, it must be nice having a boyfriend," she teased. "You even get an ankle massage during a hike." Isabel tilted her chin up, looking a little smug. Haley grinned mischievously and looked at Leo. "Hey, Leo, you look like you've got good technique. How about you give me a massage too?" Before Leo could say anything, Isabel pouted, grabbed his arm, and shot a wary look at Haley. "No," she declared loudly, her voice sharp. "Leo, you're not allowed to touch Haley's feet. You can only play with my feet." Leo's hands froze mid-massage. His entire body went rigid. He swallowed hard and slowly raised his head. He saw that many of the other hikers resting on the platform had heard Isabel's loud declaration. They were all staring at him with the strangest expressions. "You have got to be kidding me. How could one person cause such a catastrophe?" Leo's mind went blank. He was completely stunned. Isabel, realizing her voice had been a little too loud, finally looked embarrassed. She bit her lip, lowered her head, and leaned into Leo like a small child who had done something wrong. After a few seconds of stunned silence, Leo cleared his throat and gently lowered Isabel's leg from his lap. As thick-skinned as he was, he could already see someone pulling out their phone to record video. He could practically imagine the future viral title. Shocking. College student publicly plays with girlfriend's feet on Eagle Peak. He'd be infamous at the bottom of the mountain before he even made it down. "Geez, Isabel, why so sensitive?" "I was just kidding," Haley said, feeling the heat of the surrounding stares. She leaned in and whispered to Isabel. "Everyone knows Leo only has eyes for your legs and feet." Then she took Isabel's arm. "Let's go to the restroom, too. It's a long way to the next one." Isabel mumbled, her face still red, and walked off with Haley. Before she left, she glanced back at Leo, a worried look in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, little Leo. I didn't mean to. I'll wear the black stockings for you when we get down." "Huh." The feeling of social death instantly evaporated. There's a silver lining. Suddenly, Leo sat up straighter. He puffed out his chest and met the weirded-out gazes of the other hikers with the smug satisfaction of a cat that had just pushed a glass off a table. With Isabel and Haley gone to the restroom, only Leo and Landon remained. A thought struck Leo. Perfect opportunity, a perfect opportunity to probe Landon about what Isabel meant by "when you were little." Just as Leo was about to make his move, Landon walked over to him. "Jaeger, you're not going?" "Not right now." Landon nodded. "You know, Jaeger, for a first-timer, you're not making many rookie mistakes." "What do you mean?" "When you're hiking, you get thirsty, but you haven't been chugging water. Drinking a lot of water right now would just make you feel full and sweat more, which drains your energy faster." Leo blinked. The truth was, he'd just been too lazy to get his water bottle out of his bag. He'd avoided a mistake by pure accident. He glanced toward the distant restrooms. With so many people, there's always a long line. It would be at least 10 minutes before Isabel and the guys got back. He decided to steer the conversation in the direction he wanted. "Ha, lucky me, I guess," Leo said. "You said you got into hiking when you were studying abroad. Were you interested in it as a kid?" Not really. I never thought I'd study abroad. When I got there, I didn't have many friends, so I got into sports like this. I actually prefer competitive sports. The thrill of beating other people, climbing the ranks. I love that feeling." "So you thrive on competition?" Leo prompted. "Exactly. But my family thought competitive sports were too dangerous and strongly opposed it. So I had to choose safer activities." Landon sighed, a hint of disappointment in his voice. "Ever since I quit, I haven't felt that same rush, that feeling of, I'm Superman, and more supervillains there are, the stronger I get." Leo's brain short-circuited for a few seconds. He stared at Landon, whose expression was completely placid. There was no hint of irony or humor. Leo swallowed, a muscle in his cheek twitching. The more supervillains, the stronger I get. I feel like that was a reference, but I have no proof. He quickly realized that Landon had probably been abroad for so long that his way of speaking had become a bit too literal, a direct translation from another way of thinking. Ahem. Yeah, Superman is great, totally great, haha. It reminded me of a cartoon I watched when I was a kid. At this, Leo secretly watched Landon's expression. Isabel used to watch it with me. Oh, Isabel watched cartoons with you. Landon looked genuinely surprised. Then he smiled wistfully. That's nice. I always thought she wouldn't be into things like that. But now that I think about it, outside of being a Thornton, she's just a normal girl. Landon's first sentence hit Leo's mind like a boulder dropped into a still pond, sending ripples outward. His expression flickered for a microsecond before he forced himself to remain calm, hiding it from Landon. Logically, when Leo said, Isabel used to watch it with me, implying they knew each other as children, Landon should have been surprised. Because, as far as Leo knew, he couldn't have possibly known Isabel as a child. Yet Landon wasn't surprised by that at all. He was only surprised that Isabel liked cartoons. So, Isabel and I, we really did know each other when we were kids? We really did know each other when we were kids? Honestly, ever since he'd heard Isabel's inner thought. Just like when you were little, the suspicion had been nagging at him. But he'd racked his brain, searching his childhood memories, and found no trace of her. Not that it mattered much. If he and Isabel had been close as children, it was impossible that he wouldn't remember. First, this was real life, not some anime plot where the protagonist forgets the Ice Queen heiress. Second, because of how Brenda's family had treated him, he had an almost photographic memory of his entire life. He didn't have any missing periods of time. This wasn't some cheesy soap opera twist where he'd gotten amnesia and forgotten his childhood sweetheart. It was precisely because he was so certain he had no memory of her from childhood that her words were so baffling. Her statement clearly implied she knew the younger version of him. He had another thought. Maybe she looked completely different back then, so I just don't recognize her? People can change a lot. These thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. He looked back at Landon. Yeah, deep down, she's always just been a normal girl. Her family and her experiences just forced her to use that cold exterior as a shield. You probably won't believe this, but when she first moved in next door, the way we started getting close again was over this old browser game. Even now, we'll still sit at one computer, sharing a keyboard, and play it sometimes. Is that so? Landon smiled softly. I may not have seen that side of her myself, but I can guess she didn't really like the game that much. She just liked playing it with you. Leo already knew that, of course. But back then, he found it hard to believe that the Ice Queen heiress of Northwood High would enjoy playing a simple browser game that even elementary schoolers found boring. The real reason was obvious. Isabel didn't love the game. She just loved being with him. Whatever they did, she loved it because it was with him. Leo nodded, then stuffed his hands in his jacket pockets, his tone casual. Yeah, so, when did you and Isabel meet? Let's see. I was 14, and she was 10. Oh, Leo said, pressing on. That must have been after she and I met then. I don't quite remember. As he said it, he fought to keep the urgency out of his voice. He had been intentionally baiting Landon. For example, when he'd talked about the browser game, he'd said, the way we started getting close again. He'd specifically used the word again to test Landon's reaction, to see if he would question the idea that they'd known each other before. Landon hadn't questioned it. From that, Leo was now 100% certain that he and Isabel had a history before she moved into the Maplewood. He just couldn't remember it, or hadn't put the pieces together. Now, by asking when Landon and Isabel met, and adding, I don't quite remember, he was setting the stage for his real question, making it seem less abrupt. If Landon's answer was yes, Leo would know their history was before the age of 10. If it was no, he could infer it was later, but just as Leo anticipated one of those two answers, Landon suddenly turned and looked him straight in the face, silent for a long moment. He studied Leo's face for a few seconds before speaking slowly. Jaeger. What's up? Leo blinked, confused as to why Landon had suddenly stopped. Landon smiled faintly. Jaeger, you're trying to get information out of me, aren't you? If I'm not mistaken, Isabel hasn't told you about the past. You're curious, so you're trying to get the answers from me. Right. Leo was floored. He couldn't hide the shock on his face. He never imagined Landon would see right through his little scheme. Before he could recover, Landon shook his head, a hint of apology in his eyes. Sorry, Jaeger. Since Isabel has chosen not to tell you, she must have her reasons. Even though you're her boyfriend, I can't just go telling you things without her permission. As her friend, I have to respect her choice. If one day she decides to tell you, I'll gladly fill in any gaps I can. But not now. I hope you can understand. Leo opened his mouth, then closed it, simply nodding. But he couldn't help asking, how did you know I was trying to get you to talk? It was easy. This is only our second time meeting, but I trust Isabel's judgment. For her to like you this much, you must care deeply about her. If you really remembered when you and Isabel met, you wouldn't have forgotten the details. So, your little test, your I don't remember line, confirmed for me that you don't know anything and were just trying to fish for information. Hearing that, Leo felt a pang of annoyance. A hastily thrown-together plan was full of holes. After all, his line about not remembering had been the giveaway. He sighed internally. It seemed his hope of getting the truth from Landon was completely dashed. Just then, a strange commotion started up nearby. The other hikers who had been resting all around them suddenly started gasping and pointing. Leo and Landon followed the noise and saw three young men wearing skinny jeans, flashy sneakers, and ostentatious, probably fake, Gucci belts. All three had the same haircut, shaved on the sides, long on top. They looked to be about Leo's age. In front of them, a girl was crouching slightly, filming them with her phone. A small portable speaker was clipped to her waist, blasting a tinny, bass-heavy track. That was the source of the commotion. As the other hikers stared, the three wannabe influencers, completely unbothered by the attention, struck a pose. On the beat drop, they launched into a cringy, synchronized TikTok dance. Leo was stunned. It was the first time he'd ever seen anyone perform one of these dances so shamelessly in public. If he had to guess, the video was destined for TikTok, where it would get millions of views from people who knew it was trashy but couldn't bring themselves to scroll away. These were the same kind of people who were making terrible SoundCloud rap a few years ago. Landon tilted his head, a look of pure confusion on his face. Jaeger, what are they doing? Dancing? On Eagle Peak? I've been away for a few years. Has the atmosphere in the country gotten this lively? Leo rubbed his nose, embarrassed. Technically, that's not dancing. Then what is it? They're mining for clout. Landon raised an eyebrow, looking even more bewildered. Why would dancing get you clout? Especially dancing that looks so bizarre. Is that one of those stupid TikTok dances? It's so tacky. Chloe said, looking at the three guys shuffling and flailing in the middle of a crowd, her face a mask of disdain. Sophie, standing beside her, glanced over and nodded in agreement. Chloe bit her lip and linked her arm through Sophie's. Sophie, come to the bathroom with me. I drank so much water earlier. Ugh, but I don't really have to go. Seeing her best friend was reluctant. Chloe pouted and was about to try again when Steven spoke up. I'll go with you, Chloe. There's a long line. I'll wait with you until you're near the front, then I'll step away and wait outside. Ugh, no, don't come with me. It's the line for the women's room. What would it look like if you, a guy, were in line with me? People would think I have a creep for a boyfriend. Chloe rejected him without a second thought. Steven looked confused. He pointed toward the restrooms. But Chloe, look, a lot of those girls have their boyfriends waiting in line with them. The guys just wait outside when they get close. They're them, and I'm me. I just don't want you to come with me. Chloe's tone was impatient. Steven was a junior at their university, handsome, and from a wealthy family. He had plenty of girls chasing him, but he had fallen for Chloe, a freshman, and had pursued her relentlessly. At the time, Chloe had just been humiliated by Jamin Lee at Thrill Mountain, with Leo and Isabel as witnesses, and she was feeling incredibly low. Steven's kindness and gentle persistence had worn her down, and she'd accepted. At first, being with him was a thrill. His popularity on campus meant Chloe was suddenly the object of envy for countless other girls. But soon, the novelty wore off. Steven was completely devoted to her, catering to her every whim. The initial mystery and excitement were gone. Now, the more she looked at him, the more annoyed she got. He was too obedient, too much of a yes man. How could a guy be like that? Didn't he have a mind of his own? Thinking about it now only made her more irritable. She shot Steven a dirty look, grabbed some tissues from her bag, and turned to Sophie one last time. Sophie, are you sure you won't come with me? No, Chloe, I'm pretty tired from the climb. I'm just going to sit here and rest. Oh, fine. Chloe turned and marched off toward the restrooms, leaving Steven and Sophie alone. Watching her go, Steven's face fell. He didn't know how things had gotten to this point. In the first few days they were together, Chloe hadn't been like this. Now, just a short time later, she was completely different. Steven wasn't stupid. He knew Chloe probably didn't like him that much. It had just been a novelty. The only reason she hadn't broken up with him was likely because he could provide for her material wants. As he was wallowing in his disappointment, Sophie, who had watched Chloe leave, sidled up next to him. "Steven, you should take your backpack off. I'll hold it for you for a while." Steven blinked, quickly waving his hand. "It's okay, I've got it." "Oh, come on, take it off. We're not walking right now. Why are you still wearing it?" "If I had to guess, most of what's in there is Chloe's stuff, right? It must be so tiring carrying all that for her. But she doesn't appreciate it at all. She just acts like it's what you're supposed to do. As her friend, even I think she's being unreasonable." Without waiting for an answer, Sophie forcefully pulled the large backpack off Steven's shoulders and set on the ground. Her words made Steven fall silent, his expression even more downcast than before. Sophie's eyes narrowed. She took a small pack of tissues from her own bag and handed one to him. "Here, wipe your face." "Thanks." Steven took the tissue and wiped the sweat from his brow, catching the faint, pleasant scent. He knew it was just the scent of the tissue, but his heart still fluttered. He couldn't help but look up at Sophie. As he did, he found her looking back at him with a gentle smile. Their eyes met. For a split second, a thought flashed through his mind. Maybe I should just end things with Chloe. She doesn't even like me. Why am I still clinging to her? But the thought was gone as quickly as it came. In that moment of hesitation, Sophie moved closer, her body almost touching his. She spoke in a soft, low voice. "Steven, you and Chloe haven't kissed yet, have you?" We haven't been together long. We've only held hands." The words had barely left his mouth when he felt a warmth press against his lips. P8. The warm, soft sensation on his lips sent a jolt through Steven. His eyes flew open, his mind completely blank. Sophie's move was so unexpected that he couldn't process it. His body went rigid, his heart hammering against his ribs as if trying to escape. Before he could even begin to react, he felt something wet and slick tentatively probing at his lips. A shock ran through him, and he finally snapped back to reality, shoving Sophie away. But in his haste, and given their height difference, his hand landed squarely on her chest. Sophie's eyebrows knitted together, and a soft, breathy sound escaped her. Stepping back from him, her eyes held a mix of shyness and audacity. She puffed out her cheeks, not seeming angry at all. Instead, she took another step forward and whispered, "If you like that, we can find somewhere private when we get down the mountain. There are too many people here." Steven's shock deepened. He touched his own lips, then looked at Sophie with a complex expression. "Sophie, don't do this. I'm Chloe's boyfriend, and you're her best friend." He glanced worriedly toward the public restrooms. "Let's just pretend that didn't happen. I won't tell Chloe. You two are still best friends." "Best friends? We're not best friends. We're just friends," Sophie said, looking him straight in the eye without a hint of guilt. She licked her lips. "Steven, I like you. The first time I saw you today, I was drawn to you. I know it sounds crazy to say it was love at first sight, but we've never met before, and yet I just fell for you instantly. If that's not love at first sight, I don't know what is. I know you're with Chloe right now, but you know it too, don't you? You're so good to her. You spoil her and give her everything, but how does she treat you? She takes you for granted and looks down on you. Does she really see you as her boyfriend?" Steven opened his mouth, but no words came out. His mind was a tangled mess. On one hand, he had his feelings for Chloe. Confused as they were still technically a couple. On the other, Sophie's sudden confession had completely blindsided him. On the journey from the Amtrak station to Eagle Peak, Sophie's kindness and consideration had been in stark contrast to Chloe's behavior. "I know you're probably conflicted right now," Sophie continued, "but I hope you'll really think about it. It hurt me to see you like this. You're such a wonderful guy, but you're not being cherished. If you choose to leave Chloe and be with me, I'll show you that a guy can be the one who's spoiled too. You don't have to feel like you're betraying her because she never liked you in the first place. She's just using you for material things. So this isn't a betrayal. Anything Chloe can do with you, I can do with you. And the things Chloe won't do, I can do those too. Of course, if you still choose to stay with her, I won't blame you. But if you do, and she still refuses to kiss you or take things to the next level, you can come find me anytime. Because I like you. Even if you don't want to be with me, I'm willing to give you everything." Though Sophie's face was flushed, her words were fearless. Her gaze was intense, her affection practically pouring out of her eyes. Steven was completely flustered by her passionate declaration. His eyes darted between Sophie and the direction of the restrooms. He clenched and unclenched his fists, the turmoil in his heart a knot he couldn't untangle. He tried to speak several times, but his mind was replaying the moment Sophie had kissed him. It was true. In all the time he'd been with Chloe, holding hands was the most physical they'd ever been. They'd never even hugged, let alone kissed or done anything else couples do. Yet Sophie had kissed him so easily. The thrill of it was something he'd never experienced. While Sophie wasn't as pretty as Chloe, or even many of the other girls who had pursued him, she had sparked something in him he couldn't forget. Sophie, don't. His voice trembled. This is too sudden. I need time to think. The response didn't surprise Sophie, but she let a look of disappointment cross her face. Of course, this entire push-and-pull routine and the speech she'd just given were all things she had learned from Chloe herself. It was how Chloe had always strung along her many admirers. Now, Sophie was using those same tactics on Chloe's boyfriend. She lowered her head for a few seconds, then looked back up at him, her eyes welling with unshed tears. I understand, Stephen. I won't push you. She paused. But, can I hug you one more time? She asked, her eyes full of longing. Looking at her tear-filled eyes and hopeful expression, Stephen wavered. His mind screamed at him to say no. He was still Chloe's boyfriend, but a part of him couldn't bear to. After a moment's hesitation, he let out a soft sigh and gave a slight nod. A look of pure joy spread across Sophie's face. She moved in slowly and wrapped her arms around him. Stephen's body stiffened for a moment as he felt her warmth and her slight trembling. Sophie rested her head against his chest. Stephen, she whispered, I really, really like you. I hope you'll think about what I said. Stephen didn't reply, just stood there silently, the knot in his chest tightening. Just then, a familiar voice cut through the air beside them. Holy shit, that's wild. Holy shit, that's wild. Leo and Landon had only watched the cringe-dancing influencers for a minute before deciding to move away from the crowd, so Isabel and the others could find them easily. As they broke free, they ran right into Sophie, who had her back to them. At first, Leo didn't recognize her. He just assumed she and the guy she was with were a couple. But then he saw Sophie take a step forward and kiss the guy on the lips. The guy pushed her away, looking shocked, and Leo's curiosity got the better of him. He edged closer to see what was going on. When he overheard their conversation, he was dumbfounded. The girl was Sophie, and the handsome guy with her was Chloe's new boyfriend. Sophie had waited for Chloe to go to the bathroom to make a move on her boyfriend, practically offering herself to him on a silver platter. Witnessing the entire exchange, Leo couldn't help but blurt out his thoughts. His entire perception of reality felt like it had just been shattered. Was this the legendary guard against fire, guard against theft, and guard against your best friend scenario playing out in real life? Leo. His voice had been a little loud. Sophie jumped, then whipped her head around. Seeing it was him, a look of surprise crossed her face, but there was no trace of guilt or embarrassment of being caught. Leo raised an eyebrow, confused. Back at Northwood High, wasn't Sophie Chloe's loyal sidekick? How had things devolved so quickly? This was some next-level fake friendship. Sophie, what are you doing? Leo asked. Isn't Chloe your best friend? Poaching her boyfriend so openly is a pretty bold move. Sophie lifted her chin, a scornful look on her face. So what? She huffed. Best friend or not, love is selfish. I like Stephen, and I have the right to pursue my own happiness. Besides, Chloe doesn't even appreciate him. It's not my fault. And Leo, you of all people should know what Chloe is like. Otherwise, you wouldn't have treated her the way you did months ago. Leo's expression became even more intrigued. Wow. Just wow. Bravo, Sophie. Chloe goes to the bathroom and comes back to find she's been nerfed. You're the real S-tier player here. He pursed his lips and gave Sophie a thumbs up. Impressive. Whatever, Sophie sniffed, turning away as if his opinion meant nothing to her. Stephen, meanwhile, was a mess of embarrassment and conflict. He looked from Leo to Sophie, unsure what to do, and took a half step back. Sophie saw the movement, and her brow furrowed. She grabbed his hand and pulled him closer, leaning against his chest. She shot Stephen a wounded look. Stephen, don't be scared. He's not Chloe. Why are you so worried about being seen? She leaned in closer. Besides, on the train, we were sitting right behind him. Did you forget the way Chloe was looking at Leo? At the mention of that, Stephen's resistance seemed to crumble. He subconsciously tightened his grip on Sophie's hand, pulling her closer into his arms. He didn't know Leo, but for some reason, this felt like a small act of rebellion that made him feel better. Just then, footsteps approached. Isabel, Haley, Rex, and the others were coming back from the restrooms. When Isabel saw Sophie, her expression changed. The faint smile on her face vanished, replaced by an icy calm. She moved to Leo's side and took his hand. She had noticed Chloe and Sophie sitting behind them on the train, but hadn't mentioned it since Leo hadn't. Now, seeing Sophie here, she instantly knew Chloe must be nearby. That mean girl's friend is here. That means the mean girl is here, too. I have to hold on to my little Leo. Hearing her thoughts, Leo smiled faintly and squeezed her hand. Rex saw Sophie and his face lit up. He sidled over to Leo and whispered, Hey Leo, you know them? I was telling you about those two girls and a guy on the train. That's them, but the prettier one isn't here. Leo's face fell. He stared at Rex in disbelief. So, the girl Rex was interested in was Chloe? Before Leo could say anything, a sharp, angry voice cut through the air. What? What are you two doing? Chloe was walking toward them from the direction of the restrooms. Her face was dark, her eyes blazing with fury and betrayal. She stared at Sophie nestled in Stephen's arms, and then at Leo and the others standing nearby. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Seeing Chloe, Stephen flinched and instinctively let go of Sophie's hand. Sophie, however, remained perfectly calm. She looked at Chloe and said flatly, "Isn't it obvious?" "You." Chloe was stunned, her expression growing uglier. She had hoped it was a misunderstanding, that they would explain. She never expected Sophie to just admit it. "Sophie, are you insane? Stephen is my boyfriend. Do you have any idea what you're doing?" "So what?" Sophie shot back, unintimidated. "You're with him, but you don't even like him. You're just using him to get what you want. If he didn't have money, you would have dumped him ages ago. Stephen's not an idiot. He knows how you treat him. He only puts up with it because he likes you." Chloe bit her lip, furious. "How am I supposed to like a man who has no backbone?" "Are you delusional?" Sophie retorted, rolling her eyes. "The only reason Stephen is like that is because he spoils you and indulges you. And you see that as having no backbone? Fine. Stephen, from now on, stop giving in to her." "No." Chloe shrieked instantly. "See? You don't want him to stop, either," Leo added with a cheerful smile. His comment was the final spark that made Chloe see red. She was about to scream, "What business is it of yours?" But Leo's next words made her stumble back, nearly collapsing. Leo rubbed his nose. "By the way," he said casually, "I saw Sophie kiss your boyfriend just now. You can probably see that his lips are a little red. Same shade as Sophie's lipstick, I think." When Chloe heard Leo's finishing blow, she froze, then slowly turned her head to look at Stephen. Standing beside her, Stephen's expression instantly soured. He guiltily raised a hand to cover his mouth, but he was a fraction of a second too late. Chloe's eyes went wide, locking onto Stephen's lips. Just as Leo had said, the color was an exact match for Sophie's lipstick. The garish, smeared print was a blade that stabbed straight into Chloe's heart. But the pain wasn't because Stephen had cheated on her. It was the sting of humiliation, of being treated so callously in public. "How dare you do this to me?" Chloe's body trembled slightly, tears welling in her eyes. "Stephen, how could you? You scumbag, hooking up with my best friend behind my back. You're disgusting." Her voice was a cocktail of despair and fury. Stephen lowered his head, a look of genuine guilt on his face. He wanted to explain, but he didn't know how. Just then, Sophie stepped forward, positioning herself in front of Stephen and staring down Chloe without a trace of fear. "This has nothing to do with Stephen. I made the first move. Besides, Chloe, what right do you have to judge him? You don't even like him. You're just using him. Now, I like him, and I'll give him everything you want." Sophie leaned closer to Stephen. "Since you know now, you should have the decency to stay away from him. From now on, I'll be by his side." Chloe bit her lip, and the tears finally broke free. She glanced at Leo, who had an expression that screamed, "Don't mind me, just watching the show." Then at Isabel, whose cool demeanor couldn't hide the flicker of excited amusement in her beautiful eyes. A heavy pressure settled in Chloe's chest, making her feel dizzy. To be seen like this, so pathetic and exposed by Leo and Isabel of all people. Her anger surged, redirecting itself toward the couple in front of her. If it weren't for them, Leo and Isabel would never have seen her in this state. "Sophie," Chloe pleaded, her voice cracking. "After all our years as best friends, you're throwing it all away for a guy?" Sophie's brow furrowed, a flicker of hesitation in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by resolve. She scoffed. "Best friends? So what? Let's be real, Chloe. We were never on the same page. You've been spoiled your whole life, a princess with a bad attitude. If I hadn't spent all that time kissing up to you, we wouldn't have been friends at all." She smirked. "Besides, at the end of the day, all relationships are just transactions." Chloe stared, dumbfounded. Sophie's smile widened. "That line sound familiar?" "It should. It's what you taught me. Back when Leo was still stuck with his aunt's family and had to suck up to you. That's exactly what you told me about him. I'm just giving your words back to you. After all, the world works in circles. The way you treat people will eventually come back to you." "You." Chloe was shaking with rage. She never imagined her own words would be used against her like a weapon. Sophie seemed tired of the argument. She turned to Stephen. "Well, Stephen, it's all out in the open now. You have to make a choice. Me or Chloe?" "Stephen." Chloe wiped her tears, her eyes hardening with determination. "Are you seriously going to hesitate between me and Sophie? She's not as pretty as me, and her family has nothing on mine. You'll regret choosing her just to spite me. If you stay with me, I promise I'll reflect on my behavior. I won't disappoint you again." She'd figured it out. Sophie was burning the bridge between them. At the very least, she couldn't lose any more face in front of Leo and Isabel. She had to make Stephen choose her. Otherwise, she'd be the biggest joke on this mountain, stranded by the two of them with a heavy backpack and a long, lonely climb to the summit. The thought of hiking alone was unbearable. Stephen looked between Sophie and Chloe, his expression a tangled mess of conflict. Leo, who had been watching the drama unfold, narrowed his eyes. He finally had the full picture. All three of them were a goddamn train wreck. Sophie, the backstabbing best friend, sneaking a kiss with Chloe's boyfriend the second she went to the bathroom. Chloe, the user, dating Stephen while treating him like dirt, now offering a fake apology driven purely by pride and a refusal to let Sophie win. She still didn't see Stephen as a person. And Stephen, the classic whipped boyfriend, a total simp who knew Chloe didn't care about him but willingly played the part of her wallet. Now he was torn between guilt over Sophie and the prospect of getting back with Chloe. It was pathetic. Leo had no strong feelings about Sophie or Stephen, but his grievances with Chloe ran deep. He saw his opening and took it. "Chloe," he said, his voice cutting through the tension, "you haven't reflected on anything, and you're not trying to stop disappointing your boyfriend. You're just scared. You know that if he chooses Sophie, they'll ditch you on this mountain, and you'll have to climb to the top all by yourself before you can take the cable car down. And a princess like you could never handle that. The only reason you want him back is because he still has one last use to you. That, and your pride won't let you lose to Sophie. You've never, not for a second, seen him as an actual human being." Leo's words hit their mark. Both Stephen and Chloe's expressions shifted. Chloe's face went pale, her eyes darting around in panic. Leo had seen right through her. Stephen, however, looked like he'd been slapped. Understanding dawned on his face, quickly followed by a dark, ugly realization. Even now, she's still just using me? If I choose her, she'll probably dump me the second we get off this mountain. The hesitation vanished. He cupped Sophie's face in his hands, lowered his head, and kissed her. When he pulled away, he looked at Chloe, his voice cold and final. "Chloe, we're done." After delivering his verdict, Stephen shrugged off the heavy hiking backpack he'd been carrying and dropped it at Chloe's feet. Then, he took a stunned Sophie's hand and walked away without a second glance. Chloe stared at their retreating backs, her mind a complete blank. "Ah, that's satisfying," Leo murmured with a grin. He looked at the frozen-in-place Chloe, then turned to Isabel, took her hand, and said cheerfully, "Looks like the mean girl is officially stumped." Heh. He then called out to P8.She, Rex, and the others who had been watching from the sidelines. "All right, folks, bathroom break's over. Let's keep moving. No point wasting time here." "Oh, all right." Haley and the others snapped out of their spectator days. They cast one last, long look at Chloe before shouldering their packs and hurrying to catch up with Leo and Isabel. As Isabel walked beside Leo, her small hand held firmly in his, she tilted her head to look at him. Her eyes sparkled like stars. Leo's being a little mean right now, but it's to a mean girl, so it's okay. Hearing her thoughts, Leo couldn't help but chuckle. He pulled a water bottle from his bag, twisted it open, and handed it to her. "Here, drink some water." "Oh, Leo, you're a good person." Isabel took the bottle, her rosy lips taking a small sip. Her eyes remained bright, lost in thought. Seeing her like this, Leo suspected that as soon as they got off this mountain, his little neighbor was going to cycle through her entire collection of black and white stockings for him. Man, who knew life could be this good? Just then, P8.She sidled up to them, her face alight with gossip. "Isabel, you have to tell me what that was all about. You and Leo know both of those girls, right? I get the feeling there's some serious history there." Isabel glanced at Leo, seeking his permission. He gave a slight nod, letting her know it was fine to tell Haley. It wasn't like he had anything to hide. He'd only done a few things for Chloe out of necessity back when he was trying to break free from his aunt's family. This wasn't some trashy web novel where the simp gets hit by a truck and has a life-altering epiphany. With Leo's approval, Haley looped her arm through Isabel's, looking like an eager puppy waiting for a story. Seeing them occupied, Rex, who had been bottling up his curiosity, sidled up to Leo. "Hey, Jaeger, you know those two girls?" "Yeah, high school classmates. The pretty one, Chloe. Was she, into you back then?" Rex stared at Leo, dreading an affirmative answer. If that were the case, he felt like he might just have to climb over the nearest guardrail and take a swan dive off Eagle Peak. Thankfully, Leo shook his head. "Nope, just a classmate. But she's S-tier, a complete nightmare. If I'd known you were interested in her, I would have warned you." "No way, really?" From what I gathered, her best friend kissed her boyfriend while she was in the bathroom. "Seems to me the friend is the S-tier villain here, not Chloe." Rex paused, then continued, "It's obvious you two didn't get along, or you wouldn't have twisted the knife like that." But from her perspective, she did apologize to her boyfriend. I think she genuinely knew she was wrong. Leo let out a soft TSK at Rex's earnest analysis. This was Chloe's specialty. She had a knack for playing the victim, for making people feel sorry for her. Guys who didn't know the full story or her true nature always fell for it, getting baited hook, line, and sinker. Clearly, Rex was one of them. Leo pursed his lips and was about to set him straight with a well-worn phrase, but Ned Neo, the quiet novel addict, beat him to it. "Rex, don't be idiot. Even I could see that girl wasn't sorry." 3 more hours of hiking passed, and the time ticked past midnight. The temperature on the mountain had plummeted. Everyone's clothes were soaked with sweat, and the biting wind made them shiver uncontrollably. The only way to stay warm was to keep climbing, to keep their body heat up. But after hours of continuous ascent, everyone except for the athletic Ned and Landon was exhausted. Rex, in particular, was hitting his physical limit. The incline had become so steep that even the rest stops offered no shelter from the wind. Gritting their teeth, they pushed on for another hour until they were finally approaching the Golden Lock Pass. "Stop, stop, stop." Rex gasped. "I'm done, man. Every single step is torture on my knees. We're not that far from the East Peak, right? Let's just rest here. I see a place selling hot drinks and instant ramen. Let's get something warm before we keep going." The supply station, just before the pass, was a welcome sight. Leo glanced at Isabel. She hadn't complained once, but he was still worried she was pushing herself too hard. She was never one to voice her discomfort. "Let's rest here," Leo agreed. "He's right, we're close to the East Peak lookout." The group nodded, collapsing on a nearby wooden benches while Rex eagerly scrambled off to buy ramen. They had only been sitting for a minute when Leo noticed Isabel was trembling slightly. Now that she had stopped moving, the cold wind was chilling her sweat-soaked clothes. He looked over at a stall, renting out small tents, and without a second thought, paid for one. "Get in the tent. It's too cold to sit out here in the wind." I'm fine," Isabel said, shaking her head. Leo wasn't having it. He pulled her to her feet and led her to the tent. "Be good. Shoes off. Get inside." "Okay." Isabel pouted, but obediently slipped off her shoes and crawled into the tent. Seeing this, Felix pushed up his glasses. "Ned, let's get a tent, too. I'm so tired I can barely keep my eyes open. A couple of hours of sleep would be great." "All right, but it looks like they only have 2-person tents left. Where's Rex going to sleep?" Landon Archer smiled coolly. "He'll be with me. He'll be with me." Hearing Landon's calm declaration, Felix and Ned exchanged a look, a flicker of almost imperceptible pity in their eyes. They glanced over at the blissfully unaware Rex, who was happily buying ramen and hot drinks, then gave Landon a slight nod. "Okay, Landon, we'll leave Rex to you then." With the tent situation sorted, Haley Xia pouted. "Well, you all have partners, and I'm not about to be a third wheel to Isabel and Leo. I'll just rent a tent for myself. Wake me up when you guys are leaving, okay? I'm so exhausted, I'll probably sleep like a rock." "Don't worry, Haley. Sleep well," Landon said with a gentlemanly smile. Eager to get some rest, everyone quickly disappeared into their respective tents, leaving only Landon and Leo outside. Leo scanned the area one last time, then turned to Landon. "All right, when Rex gets back, you can let him know the plan." "Got it." With that, Leo nodded, kicked off his shoes, and ducked into his tent. Landon watched Rex, who had finished his food and was now sitting alone in the public rest area, a smirk playing on his lips. Landon calmly placed his own backpack inside his tent, then went to change out of his sweat-drenched shirt before re-emerging. Just then, Rex, feeling refreshed, returned to their spot. He looked around, confused to find everyone gone. He panicked for a second before spotting Landon coming out of a tent, and a wave of relief washed over him. "Landon, my man." Rex jogged over. "Where'd Leo and the others go?" Everyone decided to rest for a bit. They're all in tents, asleep. "We're heading out again in 2.5 hours. Rex's face lit up. "That was perfect. Awesome. That's great news," he said excitedly. "So, which tent are Felix and Ned in?" "I'm dead on my feet. I need a crash." Landon smiled. "Rex, they ran out of the 3-person tents, so we all got 2-person ones. Theirs is full." Then which one is Leo in? I can bunk with him." "Leo is with Isabel, of course." A sense of unease began to creep over Rex. If Felix and Ned were in one tent, and Leo and Isabel were in another, that only left Haley and Landon. And Haley was a girl, so there was no way he could share with her. Which meant, oh hell no. A knot of dread formed in Rex's stomach. He looked up at Landon, who was watching him with the predatory smile of a hunter observing its prey. Before Rex could say anything, Landon gestured toward his tent. "Rex, you're with me. It wouldn't be appropriate for you to share with Haley, after all." I could just rent another tent, right? Rex took an instinctive step back, his voice weak. Just then, the man running the rental stall picked up a megaphone. Tents are all rented out for now, folks. No more available here. If you need a rest, you'll have to push on up to the East Peak. They've got more rentals up there. You gotta be kidding me. Rex's face fell. He was about to grit his teeth and claim he wasn't tired anymore, but a sudden, frigid gust of wind extinguished that thought completely. He looked at the tent behind Landon, took a deep breath, and walked resignedly toward it. The Simp's mantra is patience and persistence. The Simp's mantra is patience and persistence. Landon didn't quite catch what Rex was muttering, but he simply smiled, removed his shoes, and followed him into the tent. Inside Leo and Isabel's tent, their backpacks were tucked into a corner. They sat facing each other in silence, the air thick with a slight awkwardness. Leo broke the silence, rubbing his nose. It's warmer in here, right? Yeah. Isabel nodded, shrugging off her heavy outer jacket. As she did, a pleasant fragrance filled the small space, much to Leo's surprise. He knew that if he took off his own jacket, the smell of stale sweat would immediately permeate the air. But when Isabel removed hers, there was no unpleasant odor at all, only a faint, clean scent. He wondered if a girl's natural fragrance was powerful enough to make even sweat smell good. With her jacket off, Isabel's gray t-shirt was revealed. The back was soaked through a darker shade of gray, and a damp line ran down from the collar. Leo could practically see the outline of her bra strap. He swallowed hard, quickly averting his gaze. We probably shouldn't use the blanket in here, he said, changing the subject. It's a rental. Who knows how many people have used it? Let's just fold it up and use it as a pillow. It's warm enough in here without it. Okay, Isabel agreed. But my shirt is soaked. It's really uncomfortable. She frowned, her brow furrowing slightly. Before Leo could respond, she reached for her backpack and pulled out a fresh t-shirt. It was common sense to pack an extra shirt for a long hike to change out of sweaty clothes. In extreme weather, staying in damp clothing could lead to hypothermia, which was life-threatening. Even though neither of them were experienced hikers, it was a tip they'd easily found online. After taking out the dry shirt, Isabel bit her lip and looked at Leo, her expression cool and unreadable. Leo, I'm changing my shirt. Leo blinked. Oh, okay. I'll just step outside. Let me know when you're done. He started to get up, reaching for the zipper. But before he could move, her hand shot out and grabbed his arm. He looked back at her, confused. Isabel lifted her chin. No, you're staying right here. Watch me. What? Leo's eyes widened in disbelief. His heart started pounding like a drum. He tried to calm himself down, telling himself he must have misheard her. I don't think that's a good idea, he said, his voice trembling slightly. Isabel's expression remained unchanged. What's not good about it? You're my boyfriend, Leo. What's the big deal? Hearing her inner thoughts, Leo could no longer contain the wild thumping in his chest. Boyfriend, right, but this is a little sudden, isn't it? Under that t-shirt is just. The more he thought about it, the more graphic the images in his head became. A deep blush crept up from his neck, spreading across his cheeks. Isabel didn't hesitate. Seeing that he wasn't protesting further, she opened the plastic bag with her clean shirt. Then, right in front of him, she grabbed the hem of her damp t-shirt and began to pull it upward. The wet fabric slowly rose from her stomach. Leo didn't know if it was his perception or if she was actually moving in slow motion, but it felt like an eternity. He tried to control his gaze, but he couldn't help but steal a glance at the patch of pale, smooth skin being gradually revealed. Her waist was incredibly slender. Leo's face turned beet red, and he quickly whipped his head to the side, his heart hammering in his ears. He felt like he was sitting in an oven, his whole body on fire. Isabel, seemingly oblivious to his turmoil, continued to peel off the shirt with deliberate slowness. As more of her was revealed, Leo's mind raced with forbidden images, making him even more flustered. It's white. Finally, the damp shirt came off completely, and Leo's jaw dropped. Wait a minute. That's not right. He was dumbfounded. It was a sports bra. Damn it. No wonder she told me to stay and watch. She was wearing a sports bra the whole time. The kind of thing girls wore to the gym or out for a run all the time. In his shock, Leo's muttered complaint had been a little too loud. Isabel, having removed her shirt, tilted her head, her eyes full of confusion. What's not right? Nothing. Leo rubbed his nose, his expression incredibly awkward. Okay, so I just let my imagination run wild. Isabel just said, oh, and began pulling the clean t-shirt over her head. By now, Leo had recovered from his initial excitement. Even though it was just a sports bra, her figure was so perfect that he'd still gotten a view he didn't usually see. Hey, did you think I was wearing a regular bra under here? Leo? Psych. I wasn't. And even if I was, you have no proof. It's not like you can hear my thoughts anyway. Teehee. Hearing her inner monologue, Leo screamed internally. Once she was fully dressed, Isabel lifted her chin slightly and said softly, "You should change your shirt too. You'll catch a cold sleeping in wet clothes." "Right." Leo nodded and pulled his own clean shirt from his backpack. He brazenly stripped off his jacket and t-shirt right there and changed. As a guy, there was no question of him taking advantage of the situation. After they were both in dry clothes, Isabel studied him for a few seconds, a faint smile gracing her lips. Then she laid down on her side, using the folded-up rental blanket as a pillow. Leo felt a little awkward under her gaze. He cleared his throat and lay down beside her. The atmosphere in the tent became quiet and still, as if time itself had slowed down. "Ahem, let's get some sleep," he said. "You must be exhausted." Isabel let out a soft "ahem," her voice sweet and a little sleepy. "Yeah, but there's no one else here. No one will see." "I know. So hurry up and sleep." Seeing that Leo didn't seem to get her meaning, Isabel pouted and repeated herself. "No one's here. No one will see us." "Yeah, I know. So get to sleep already." Isabel frowned at his dense act, sighed softly, and muttered, "You're definitely doing this on purpose," before suddenly leaning in and pressing her lips against his. 2.5 hours later, at 4:30 in the morning, the phone beside him vibrated. Leo's eyes snapped open, and he quickly shut off the alarm. He turned on his side to look at Isabel. She hadn't been woken by the faint buzz. Her long eyelashes fluttered, and a gentle smile played on her lips as she slept. Watching her, Leo felt a warmth spread through his chest. He reached out, wanting to touch her cheek, but pulled his hand back just before making contact. He grabbed his jacket, quietly unzipped the tent, and slipped outside. A blast of cold mountain air hit him, instantly chasing away the last remnants of sleep. He pulled on his jacket and noticed that people were starting to emerge from the other tents. Everyone was getting ready to make the final push to the summit. Any later, and they might miss the sunrise. "Jaeger, sleep well?" Landon's voice came from behind him. Leo turned, surprised to see that Landon was already up, a faint smile on his face. "Ahem, yeah, it was all right. It was only a short nap, though." "Isabel still sleeping?" "Yeah, I'll wake her up once everyone else is ready." Leo nodded, his gaze drifting affectionately toward their tent. As Landon went to wake Haley, Felix, and Ned, Leo saw Rex crawl out of his tent. His hair was a mess, and he looked thoroughly annoyed. After putting on his shoes, the first thing he did was stand up and rub his rear end, muttering complaints under his breath. Both Leo and Felix saw it at the same time. Leo's breath hitched. He stared at Rex in shock for a full 5 seconds before asking in a horrified voice, "Rex, you didn't. You actually gave it to him? Rex, you didn't. You actually gave it to him." Until this moment, Leo had known Landon was in a guise, but he'd never thought he'd have any interest in Rex. After all, the first time they met, Landon had said, "Leo, you're my type." Leo didn't particularly want to admit it, but he and Rex had almost nothing in common in terms of looks or personality. Logically, Landon should have had zero interest in him. But now, watching Rex's pain movements, it seemed, his judgment had been flawed. Rex looked up and saw Leo and Felix staring at him with expressions of pure shock. He blinked, then snapped, "Screw you guys. You must have food poisoning from that cheap dinner last night. You're hallucinating. You think I give it up that easily? Besides, I'm into girls, so stop talking nonsense." "Then why were you rubbing your ass?" Felix's eyes were still locked on Rex's backside, his face a mask of disbelief. "Get lost. The tent Landon and I slept in was pitched on a bad spot. My side was right on top of a pointy rock. It was too much trouble to move the tent, so I just dealt with it. Now my ass is killing me from sleeping on a damn rock all night." Hearing his explanation, Leo and the others nodded, only half convinced. Seeing that everyone was up, Leo was about to go wake Isabel, but Haley spoke up. "Leo, is Isabel still sleeping?" "Yeah, I didn't want to wake her, since she must be tired." "I'll go get her now. I'll do it." Haley volunteered. Leo didn't object, just giving her a nod. A moment later, Haley ducked into the tent. She emerged a few seconds later, her face bright red. As she passed Leo, she shot him a reproachful look. "Leo, what on earth have you been teaching Isabel?" Leo was completely baffled. "I didn't do anything. What did I teach her?" Before he could figure it out, Isabel emerged from the tent, looking just as flustered as Haley, a matching blush on her cheeks. The group shouldered their packs, did a final check to make sure they hadn't left anything, and started the final ascent. It was just after 4 in the morning, and the temperature had dropped significantly. The wind was relentless, and even usually bubbly Haley was quiet, too cold and tired to make conversation. Leo and Isabel walked side by side. He leaned in and whispered, "What happened when Haley went to wake you up? You both came out blushing, and she said I taught you something." And nothing. Isabel's expression became very unnatural, and she stammered a reply. "Don't ask. I thought it was you waking me up, so I leaned over and kissed Haley on the cheek." "What?" Leo's eyes widened. No wonder Haley had said that to him. Good thing it was her cheek and not her mouth. Otherwise, every time Isabel and I, it would be like indirectly kissing Haley. He silently shook his head, then pulled his phone and a pair of wireless earbuds from his pocket. He connected them via Bluetooth and handed one to Isabel. "Here, one for you, one for me. No one's talking much anyway. Might as well listen to some music." "Okay." Isabel nodded softly and took the earbud. He fell in a step behind her, a protective habit to make sure she didn't stumble on the steep path. The playlist was a recommended one, full of current pop hits he'd never heard and simple, lyrically blunt folk songs. It wasn't until they had passed the Golden Lock Pass and the Central Peak, with only the final stretch to the East Peak remaining, that a familiar melody began to play. A love song? Leo recognized it instantly. It was an old classic, but one that had remained popular over the years. He'd heard it countless times. Time is amber, tears are locked away. Love letters fade, ground down to hourglass sand. Fate has a dark humor, leaving lovers in silence. A whole universe traded for a single red bean. Memories like a cornered beast, tamed by long loneliness. Hearing those lines, Leo's brow furrowed. For a fleeting second, a familiar image flashed in his mind, but it vanished before he could grasp it. Then, the chorus hit. "The first song you ever wrote for me." Leo froze. He looked up at Isabel's back, and suddenly, her silhouette seemed to merge with the image of a little girl from his memory. Leo's mouth fell slightly open, his expression growing complex. Just then, the music in his earbud cut out. He quickly pulled out his phone, only to see that the battery had died at the most critical moment. The memory, which had been so close, slipped away again. Up ahead, Isabel noticed the silence and turned around. Seeing him standing still, she walked back a few steps. "Leo, what's wrong?" Her voice pulled him out of his frustration. He shook his head and forced a smile. "Nothing. My phone died." "Oh, well, we're almost at the East Peak. The sunrise is in about 10 minutes, she said, smiling and pointing to their left. The viewing platform was just a short distance away. Before Leo could reply, Rex, who was leading the group, turned and yelled, "Jaeger, pick up the pace. The sun's about to come up. We need to get a good spot. Let's go." With that, he and Ned excitedly broke into a run. Leo and Isabel exchanged a look and quickened their pace. At 6:05 a.m., they finally reached the East Peak platform, with 10 minutes to spare before the officially predicted sunrise. "Phew, we made it." Haley let out a long breath, a wide smile on her face. "Isabel, you and Leo should stand up front. I'll get behind you and take pictures. The silhouette against the sunrise will be absolutely epic." "Okay." Isabel nodded, her usual cool expression completely gone. She slipped her hand from her pocket and quietly took Leo's. Rex, standing nearby, watched them, his eyes red with envy. "So sweet," he muttered. "When am I going to get a relationship this sweet?" Leo, holding Isabel's hand, pulled a power bank from his bag and plugged in his phone. As the screen lit up, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd on the platform. "Wow, it's starting." On the distant horizon, a fiery red sun began its slow ascent, its warm, brilliant light instantly chasing away the morning chill. At that exact moment, Leo unlocked his phone, and the song that had been cut off resumed in his earbud. A whole universe, traded for a single red bean. Memories like a cornered beast, tamed by long loneliness. In that instant, his world shifted. The fragmented memory that had eluded him time and time again was now firmly in his grasp, just as firm as the soft, slender hand he was holding. Click! As the sun broke over the horizon, Haley captured the perfect shot. Leo and Isabel's silhouettes against the vibrant dawn. The image was timeless, the warm light tracing their forms in a beautiful golden outline. Isabel turned her head slightly to look at Leo, her eyes full of tenderness. He turned to meet her gaze, and his own expression had changed. It held a new depth of affection, a fondness that hadn't been there before. It seemed he finally knew when they had first met. He just didn't understand why. Isabel, unaware of the sudden flood of memories that had just returned to him, looked at him with a hint of confusion. She didn't understand the sudden shift in his eyes, but she could clearly see that his feelings for her had deepened. She shifted, leaning her body gently against his. "Leo, I love being with you," she said, her voice for the first time holding a sweet, drawn-out, coquettish tone. The mountain wind swept past, playfully tangling the loose strands of her hair across her face. After watching the sunrise, the group made their way to the South Peak, then on to the West Peak. By 9 in the morning, the 7 of them were riding the cable car down the mountain. The moment they settled onto the bus, Rex let out a long sigh. That was my first time climbing a mountain, and it will absolutely be my last. I'm so tired. So damn tired. Come on, Rex, you can't mean that, Felix said. Wasn't the view from the West Peak and the sunrise beautiful? Rex pouted. Beautiful, yeah, but exhausting too. I'd rather just look at pictures on my phone. No more of this hardcore college road trip stuff for me. The bus left the mountain area and dropped them at the station. As they stepped out, 2 black SUVs pulled up to the curb. Landon handed his bag to a driver who got out to meet them. Everyone must be exhausted after that climb, Landon announced. I've arranged for us to get foot massages to relax our legs. Otherwise, your calves and feet are going to be killing you for the next couple of days. Landon, you're a great guy, Ned said in his typical straightforward manner. So, are we talking a legit massage place, or the other kind? Felix pushed up his glasses in agreement. Haley linked arms with Isabel, grinning. Isabel, you and Landon are both ridiculously generous. You two keep treating us to everything. Even a thick-skinned person like me is starting to feel a little embarrassed. It's nothing, Isabel said quietly. Leo squinted and nudged Rex, who was standing next to him. Hey, Rex, you're always going on about being a rich kid. Look at Landon. He's a rich kid too, but he knows how to treat his friends. He bought us dinner before the hike, and now he's treating us to massages. Aren't you going to step up? You going to let him one-up you like that? Rex pulled a cigarette from his pocket and stuck it in his mouth, sniffing dismissively. I'm perfectly fine with that. Leo was stunned. Wait, that wasn't right. Rex was usually the easiest person to provoke. Normally, a comment like that would have him puffing out his chest and declaring that the day's expenses were all on him. But now, he wasn't even taking the bait. Did he leave his soul back on mountain? Noticing Leo's confused expression, Rex smirked, the picture of smugness. Leo, my friend, you've scammed me so many times, I've finally built up a resistance. He's growing up, Leo thought, pouting slightly that his trick hadn't worked. The drivers took their heavy backpacks and loaded them into the cars. The group climbed in and headed for the spa Landon had booked. The ride was smooth, and the atmosphere inside was relaxed and cheerful. Haley and Isabel were whispering, sharing stories from the hike, while Haley showed her the photos she'd taken. The more Isabel looked at the pictures of her and Leo, the sappier her expression became, like a big, goofy orange cat, a far cry from her usual Ice Queen persona. Rex leaned back with his eyes closed, occasionally muttering about how tired he was. Leo, however, was quiet. He stared out the window at the passing scenery, his mind racing. The memories that had returned to him during the sunrise had subtly shifted his perspective. I have to ask her directly, he thought. Otherwise, I'll never figure this out. Soon, they arrived at the spa. The place was impressively luxurious. Landon led them inside, where they were greeted warmly and shown to a large private room. It was spacious and exquisitely decorated. As they sat down, attendants brought basins of hot water infused with fragrant herbs. Leo saw his chance. He pulled Landon aside. Hey, do they have 2-person rooms here? If so, I'd like to get a private one with Isabel. Landon looked at him, then saw the serious expression on Leo's face and seemed to understand. He nodded and called an attendant over to arrange a separate room for them. When Leo went to get Isabel, she had no idea what was coming. Hearing only that he wanted a private room with her, she lit up with excitement. Click! The moment Isabel stepped inside the room, Leo shut the door behind them. He rubbed his nose, thought for a moment, and then decided to be direct. So, he began, when were you going to tell me about when we were kids? Leo had thought it through. He'd already tried asking indirectly before, and Isabel had completely dodged the question. This time, he decided to stop beating around the bush. The moment he asked, Isabel visibly flinched, a flicker of panic in her eyes before it was quickly masked by her usual calm. She lifted her chin, putting on the cool, detached expression she used whenever she was playing dumb. Leo, what are you talking about? What about when we were kids? What's happening? How did Leo suddenly bring up our childhood? I thought he didn't remember any of it. Why now? I haven't figured out how to tell him yet. Her sudden, frantic inner monologue felt like it could have shaken his soul right out of his body. But it also confirmed that his recovered memories were real. He sometimes wondered what it would be like if she ever let that side of her out in the real world. Faced with her denial, Leo narrowed his eyes. You're too smart to not know what I'm talking about. Since they were alone, Isabel puffed out her cheeks slightly and muttered, "You're the smart one. I'm just a silly girl who doesn't know anything." Seeing her try to play cute to get out of it, Leo sighed. "We've known each other for a long time now, and we're in a real relationship. You can tell me this stuff, can't you? I'm genuinely curious. Before you moved into the Maplewood, we barely spoke a word to each other in class. I could never figure out why you were so forward with me." He paused, then decided to lay all his cards on the table. "This morning, during the sunrise, I remembered. We met when we were kids, didn't we? I don't want there to be any secrets between us. At the very least, you have to tell me what made you move in next door to me." His voice softened. "Please don't hide it from me." Hearing him spell it out so plainly, Isabel could no longer conceal her surprise. Her eyelashes trembled, and her lips parted slightly as she looked up at him. After a moment of silence, she lowered her gaze. "I never wanted to hide it from you." "Then tell. When we get home, I'll tell you everything, okay?" She cut in, her voice earnest. "I just want to be properly prepared before I tell him. It's not really a big secret or anything." She looked up again, meeting his gaze directly. Her eyes were sincere, with no trace of evasion. Looking into those eyes, Leo's resolve softened. Since she had promised to tell him, a few more hours wouldn't hurt. "All right, we'll talk tonight back at the Maplewood." "Okay." With that settled, Isabel seemed to return to normal, her cool and lively expression reappearing. She pointed hopefully at the door. "So, can we let the massage therapist in now? My calves and feet are really starting to ache." A grin spread across Leo's face as he played dumb. "What massage therapists?" The ones from the spa," Isabel said, looking confused. But in the next second, Leo was pulling her over to one of the spa beds and sitting her down. He cleared his throat and announced in a deep voice, "Technician no. 69 Leo at your service." Before Isabel could react, Leo had already knelt down and was starting to take off her shoes. The moment his fingers touched her foot, a blush bloomed on her cheeks. She tried to pull her foot back, but he held it firmly. "I was hiking, my feet are all sweaty and gross." Leo didn't say a word. He simply slipped off her sock and began kneading the pressure points on her foot. He wasn't just messing around. He had actually looked up foot massage techniques before. After his long night shifts sorting packages, his whole body would ache, so he'd searched online for ways to relieve the pain in his feet and legs. Otherwise, he could barely walk at school the next day. Besides, it wasn't the first time he'd massaged her legs. Last time just happened to be through a pair of stockings. Isabel, unable to win the struggle, relented. She felt a ticklish, tingling sensation spread from the sole of her foot all the way to the top of her head, and she couldn't suppress a soft moan. At first, she was shy and resistant, but as Leo's massage grew gentle yet firm, she gradually relaxed, her eyes fluttering closed in pleasure. Leo, gentler, that tickles." Leo kneaded with more vigor, thinking to himself, "Man, a girl's foot really does feel different. Damn you, Warden, you fiend." "Whoa, that was amazing," Rex said as they left the spa. "I gotta say, the ladies in there looked up foot massage techniques before." After his long night shifts sorting packages, his whole body would ache, so he'd searched online for ways to relieve the pain in his feet and legs. Otherwise, he could barely walk at school the next day. Besides, it wasn't the first time he'd massaged her legs. Last time just happened to be through a pair of stockings. Isabel, unable to win the struggle, relented. She felt a ticklish, tingling sensation spread from the sole of her foot all the way to the top of her head, and she couldn't suppress a soft moan. At first, she was shy and resistant, but as Leo's massage grew gentle yet firm, she gradually relaxed, her eyes fluttering closed in pleasure. Leo, gentler, that tickles." Leo kneaded with more vigor, thinking to himself, "Man, a girl's foot really does feel different. Damn you, Warden, you fiend." "Whoa, that was amazing," Rex said as they left the spa. "I gotta say, the ladies in there really know what they're doing." "No kidding. Landon sure knows how to pick him. I wonder if there's a place this good back in Crestview." Landon, overhearing him, smiled and clapped a hand on Rex's shoulder. "Of course there is, Rex. If you like, we can go together when we get back." Maybe some other time." Rex laughed awkwardly and took a subtle step forward, neatly sidestepping Landon's hand. He then turned to Leo and Isabel. "Hey, Jaeger, you and Isabel got a private room. Your therapists must have been even better, right?" It was all right, I guess," Leo said, rubbing his nose and avoiding eye contact. But Isabel, a look of pure bliss on her face, lifted her chin and said coolly, "Technician no. 69's technique was excellent." It wasn't like Leo had been massaging Isabel's foot the entire time. He wasn't a professional, after all. He helped her for a little while before calling in the actual therapists. While they worked on their feet, he leaned back and tried to piece together his childhood memories. He vaguely recalled that it must have been when he was 8 years old. He was still living in the old neighborhood with Brenda's family. Every evening after school, the neighborhood kids would gather to play. There were a few girls in their group, and besides Chloe, he remembered 3 others who were pretty. But at that age, unless you went to the same school or your parents knew each other, you rarely learned anyone's name. He remembered one of those girls had only been around for a short time. She was quiet and didn't talk much, but she always silently tagged along with him and the other kids. That must have been a young Isabel. But my memory of her is still so faint. She was only there for a few weeks. There's no way that alone would make her remember me for all these years. He glanced over at her, still lost in thought. He knew he wouldn't get the real reason until she told him herself. At 7 that evening, their Amtrak train finally pulled into Crestview Station. After hiking through the night, no one had gotten much sleep aside from the short nap at the spa. As they stepped onto the platform, they were all fighting to keep their eyes open. "I can't do it," Rex declared. "Ned, Felix, let's just find a hotel nearby for the night. If I try to drive us back to campus in this state, it'll be a 3-car pileup with only 1 car. I think that's a good idea," Ned agreed. "Works for me," Felix added. They both had licenses, but they were just as exhausted as Rex. Leo and Isabel didn't have to worry. Isabel had already called Lester, who said he'd be there in 20 minutes to take them back to the Maplewood. Suddenly, Rex's expression changed, and he pointed excitedly. "Whoa, Leo, look. Is that Chloe?" Everyone turned to look. Not far away, a completely defeated-looking Chloe was walking out of the station. The Chloe who never left the house, without perfect makeup, now wore the face of utter failure. Her eyes were blank as she stared ahead, lost in thought. A wave of smug satisfaction washed over Leo, mixed with a little surprise. He couldn't believe she'd actually made it back from Eagle Peak alone. She'd left as a party of 3 and returned as a party of 1. "Man, if you ignore all the facts, you almost feel bad for her," Rex mused. "Goes on a hike, loses her best friend and her boyfriend." Leo shot him a withering look. If you have to ignore all the facts, then she doesn't deserve an ounce of pity. Just then, Isabel squeezed Leo's hand. "Leo, let's go wait for Lester up ahead. It'll be hard for him to pull in here." "Huh, this is the passenger pickup area. He should be fine," Leo said, confused. But seeing the determined look on her face, he nodded. "All right. Hey guys, we're gonna head out. Haley, you wanna ride with us?" No, it's fine. Landon said he'd take me home. "I won't be a third wheel, Haley said, waving them off with a smile. Landon nodded at them, confirming he'd see her home safely. Isabel took Leo's hand and led him forward, their path taking them directly past Chloe. As they were about to pass her, Isabel suddenly stopped, her brow furrowed. "Leo, my shoelace is untied." "Oh, okay, I'll get it." Without thinking, Leo knelt to tie her shoe. He wasn't very good at it. He usually just tied his own in a messy knot. A moment later, they were hurrying back in the direction they had come from. As they walked, Leo muttered, "See? I told you Lester would pick us up over here. How would he even get to where you pointed? That's against traffic." "Oh, right. My mistake," Isabel said, not arguing at all. She obediently let him lead her. But as she spoke, she glanced over at Chloe, who was watching them with a complex expression. Isabel subtly lifted her chin, squeezed Leo's hand a little tighter, and a beautiful smile blossomed on her face. Chloe wasn't stupid. Watching them walk back and forth and hearing Leo's complaints, her expression soured as if she'd eaten something foul. She finally broke. Big, fat tears streamed from her eyes. She stomped her foot in frustration, then squatted down, wrapped her arms around her knees, and began to sob uncontrollably. Rex and the others, who hadn't left yet, watched, stunned. Felix pushed up his glasses, marveling at the scene. "Damn, I didn't think Isabel had it in her. She's even more ruthless than Leo. That's not just twisting the knife, that's pouring salt in the wound." "What can I say? Spend enough time with Leo, and you turn into a troll. It happens to everyone," Rex replied sagely, hands in his pockets. Then, when no one was looking, he discreetly took out his phone and typed a note to himself. "Damn, that move was good. When I get a girlfriend, I'm totally using that to flex on Jaeger." By the time Lester dropped Leo and Isabel off at the Maplewood, it was almost 9 o'clock. Per Isabel's request, Lester had also brought Buttercream and Oscar over from the Thornton estate. After grabbing a quick dinner of wonton soup at a nearby shop with the cat and dog in tow, they headed up in the elevator. The moment they stepped into apartment 1003, Leo couldn't wait any longer. "So, can you tell me now?" Isabel bit her lip and nodded softly. "Okay, come to my room." Leo's breath hitched. In all the times he'd been to her apartment, This was the first time he'd ever been invited into her bedroom. As he entered, he was greeted by a gentle fragrance in a room full of warm, charming decorations. There were light pink curtains, a soft rug, and a bookshelf filled with books and small trinkets. Several cute pillows were arranged on the bed. The whole room radiated a soft, feminine energy. Leo stood there awkwardly, not sure where to look. Isabel smiled at his discomfort. She walked to her desk, picked up a photo frame, and handed it to him. He took it. The photo was of a little girl, cried her eyes out. Standing next to her was a little boy, clutching a lollipop and cautiously offering it to her. Leo's eyes widened. He looked from the photo to Isabel, completely bewildered. Is this me? Is this me? Leo stared at the photo frame Isabel had given him, his face a mask of disbelief. As far as he could remember, after he was taken in by Brenda's family, the only childhood photos he had were school group pictures. Brenda and her husband never took any pictures of him. All their photos were of their own son, Derek. Whenever they took a family portrait, they would deliberately make him stand off to the side. They had never once treated him like part of the family. Of course, that was precisely why he felt no guilt whatsoever when he took them to court. Seeing this picture now was a complete shock. Isabel nodded, her eyes soft and warm. Yes, that's you. Leo's mouth hung open. He pointed to the sobbing little girl in the photo. And this is you. Doesn't look like me. Isabel playfully lifted a hand, curled it into a fist, and held it under her eye, mimicking the crying pose of her younger self in the picture. Leo looked from the photo to the cool, elegant girl in front of him. For a moment, the two images merged. He was stunned for a long moment before he finally broke into a smile. It really does. But you were cuter back then. Isabel pouted and gave a non-committal low. Her inner thoughts, however, immediately followed. So I'm not cute now? I'm very, very coolly cute. You're ridiculously cute on the inside, Leo thought, but you never show it. He pushed the thought aside and got straight to the point. The memory I had on the mountain. It was from when I still lived in that old apartment complex with Brenda's family. There were a bunch of us kids and a few girls. It's blurry, but I remember you were always quiet. Thinking back now, I can place you. How did you suddenly remember that we knew each other as kids? Isabel's eyes sharpened, seizing on the key part of his statement. How did Leo suddenly make the connection to our childhood? Landon also asked me on the mountain if I had told Leo about it, saying Leo was trying to get information out of him. But if Landon didn't spill the beans, how did Leo remember? There had to be a trigger. He wouldn't have just started thinking about it out of the blue. Hearing her rapid-fire inner monologue, Leo felt a bead of sweat form on his brow. It was true. Before he had heard her mention, when we were kids in her thoughts, he'd never made the connection. He had no idea they had known each other back then. It was only after hearing that one thought that he'd started probing and trying to remember. He hadn't expected her to be sharp enough to catch the discrepancy. Faced with her scrutinizing gaze, Leo felt a pang of guilt. But to avoid giving himself away, he forced a calm expression. It wasn't sudden. It was more that, well, you moved in next door to me. And considering our relationship in class back then, you normally wouldn't have given me the time of day. You were the ice queen of the school, after all. So as we got closer, I naturally started to wonder if you already knew me before you moved in. Otherwise, why would a rich heiress like you, the unapproachable campus queen, move in next door and then, without a second thought, ask a guy you barely know into your apartment late at night for help? You could have just called Lester or your bodyguards, Ron and Hugh. You didn't need to bother me. He paused, rubbing his nose in slight embarrassment. That kind of behavior clashes with your whole Ice Queen persona. If it wasn't intentional, it would be the kind of dumb decision you only see in bad movies or cheesy novels. As he spoke, a blush crept onto Isabel's cheeks. So he knew I was doing it on purpose all along. So embarrassing, so embarrassing, so embarrassing. How could I not know? Leo thought. It was so obvious. If I hadn't been so confused about your motives back then, I would have called you out on it ages ago. Isabel composed herself, her eyes darting away. All right, let's not talk about that. You want to know about our childhood, right? Yeah, I do. Seeing that he had successfully diverted her attention, Leo breathed a sigh of relief. Isabel's gaze softened as she seemed to drift into the past. Well, it's just like you remembered. The first time I saw you was in that apartment complex. My stepmother's mother, she lived there. Back then, my father was always busy with work. I was usually at home with the maids or with Lester. My father didn't feel comfortable sending me to school, so I had private tutors. One day, my stepmother told my father that since they were married, she wanted to treat me like her own daughter. She suggested taking me to stay with her mother for a while so I could have more contact with the outside world. So, she brought me to that neighborhood. As she spoke, the light in her eyes dimmed. Leo understood. That period of time with her stepmother was likely one of the worst memories of her life. Even before she got to the heart of the story, he could already guess the general reason. He shifted closer to her on the bed and gently wrapped an arm around her. Feeling the security of his embrace, Isabel took a shaky breath and continued. After she brought me there, she just left me at Mrs. Gable's house. She rarely came back. My stepmother and her mother didn't have a good relationship, so Mrs. Gable didn't like me. If I stayed in the house without helping her with chores, she would yell at me. So I hated being there. I would just wander around the neighborhood by myself and only go back at night to sleep. That way, she wouldn't have as many chances to yell at me. Leo frowned. What about meals? You didn't go back to eat? At first, I just went hungry. But later, she paused and looked up at him, a gentle smile gracing her lips. Leo, you big dummy, you've forgotten so much. Later, you were the one who always brought me food. What? Leo froze, completely stunned. He had absolutely no memory of that. He was too young, and his mind had already struggled to retain the memories of the abuse he'd suffered from Brenda's family. An act of casual kindness, something he probably hadn't thought twice about, had been completely lost to time. Seeing his reaction, Isabel didn't look disappointed. She knew it was the kind of thing only she would remember for so long. She smiled softly and continued. It's okay that you don't remember. For you, it was just a small, passing moment. But it was a moment I held on to for a very long time. Back then, I was alone in the neighborhood every day. It was boring, but it was better than being in that house. Mrs. Gable, she was always scolding me. My favorite time of day was when you all came home from school, because then the neighborhood would be full of kids, and I wouldn't be alone. Even though you guys didn't really include me, just being able to run along behind you was enough to make me happy. And out of all the kids, you were the one who talked to me the most. I never said anything, but you weren't like the others. You didn't keep your distance. Hearing this, Leo was certain. During what must have been the most difficult and helpless time in her life, his unintentional kindness had sparked something in her. This was a textbook childhood friend I never knew I had plotline. He pointed to the photo frame again. So this picture, who took it? I don't remember it at all. Lester did. He was standing far away when he took it. It was just a candid shot, so I didn't even find it until many years later. It's the only picture I have of us as kids. I had it professionally enhanced and enlarged. Isabel's voice remained calm, but whenever she spoke of the past and mentioned him, a gentle softness would appear at the corners of her eyes. Later, my stepmother took me away from that neighborhood. When I was older and had the chance, I asked Lester to take me back, but you were already gone. She paused, then lowered her head, her voice tinged with embarrassment. She summoned her courage and looked up at him again, her eyes shimmering. Something you can barely even remember. I've held on to it my whole life. Do you think I'm silly? Leo looked at her face, at those glistening eyes, and felt nothing but a deep, aching sympathy. There was no judgment, no thought of her being naive. There was only heartbreak. Sharon Thornton had taken Isabel to a mother she didn't get along with, left her there alone, and rarely visited. She did it to create a false impression for Isabel's father, to solidify her own position within Thornton Industries, and slowly erase every trace of Isabel's real mother from his heart. But she had no patience for the actual child. She had thrown Isabel away, knowing full well her own mother would resent a child from her husband's previous marriage. It all made sense to Leo now. At a time when she was grieving the loss of her mother and dealing with a new stepmother, she was treated like an inconvenience. He could only imagine how lonely and insecure she must have felt, that a few shared snacks, a single lollipop from him, could be enough to anchor her for all these years. He knew then. It was in that state of mind that she had fallen for him so easily at such a young age. She had been starved for love and attention. As this realization settled over him, Leo's expression grew complex. He was silent for a long moment before he spoke again, his voice raspy. I wish you hadn't remembered me so easily back then. I wish you hadn't remembered me all these years. Huh. Isabel tilted her head, her eyes filled with confusion. Why? It might seem silly, but Leo, you're the person I've been thinking about all this time. Hearing her inner thoughts, Leo shook his head, his gaze serious. If you hadn't been so lonely, so insecure, you wouldn't have latched onto me so easily. You wouldn't have fallen for me. If I could go back, I would want you to be happy, not for you to fall for some kid just because you were stuck in such a toxic environment. He knew the words sounded cheesy, maybe even a little preachy, but they were the honest truth. He understood better than anyone. The shadows of childhood could take a lifetime to heal from. He could hear her inner voice, and he knew the real Isabel was not some high and mighty ice queen. Her experiences had forced her, from a very young age, to wear silence and compliance as a suit of armor. It had become so ingrained that it seemed like her real personality. But it wasn't. Otherwise, he never would have been able to hear those thoughts. So why been hearing all this time? It wasn't some opposite, hidden personality. It was the real her. When that thought struck him, something deep inside him shifted. He looked at her with a new, unspoken emotion in his eyes. Isabel, hearing his words, froze. She stared at him, stunned. A long moment passed, and the corners of her mouth began to lift into a smile. But in the next second, her expression crumbled, and tears, like broken pearls, spilled from her eyes. "Leo," she sobbed, unable to say anything else. She just looked at him and cried. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Of course, no one had ever said anything like that to her before. No one had ever wished for her happiness above all else. That's why her decision to move next door to him, to get closer to him, was never impulsive or absurd. Because when you have a perfect person in your heart, everyone else pales in comparison. After a long while, Isabel wiped her tears and pulled away from his embrace. She went to her desk, took a light blue notebook from a drawer, and handed it to him. "What's this?" he asked, taking it from her. "You'll see when you read it." She stood there, her hands clasped behind her back, her head tilted slightly. Though tear tracks still stained her cheeks, they couldn't diminish the pure, gentle smile she gave him. In that moment, she was the very picture of youth.